Chapter 838 I Am the King of Mo Cloud Sea. Zhua Mo and Tsing Lianer exchanged a look and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The realm of a deity. How many years had it been since someone so strong had appeared? Just the power that Chief Elder showed right now was not something that a person could defeat. The legend said that those who stepped into this level would easily destroy or lock down a Jia. Terrifying. Zhua Mo, who never feared anything, couldn't stop a thread of terror from rising right now. The Chief Elder's emaciated figure seemed to take over the entire sky and gave people a feeling of great pressure. Even eldest Xixiang's presence that increased constantly paled in comparison. In the opposite of the shock on Zhua Mo's side, Tianhuan's members were overjoyed. They looked at Chief Elder in the air and wanted to kneel and worship. Wei Sheng could also feel the strength of the enemy. Previously, he was able to lock onto the other's presence. At present, Chief Elder appeared just the same as before, but he found that no matter how hard he tried, he could not lock onto Chief Elder's body. Chief Elder seemed to be one with the world and showed no traces. The god-killing blood sword in his hand furiously trembled. It furiously trembled as though it was trying to break free of Wei Sheng's hand. But Wei Sheng's hand was like rock, motionless. He could feel that the endless ocean of blood inside the god-killing blood sword was roaring angrily, the entire ocean rippling, the waves thousand of zhang high. The world inside the sword had completely come alive. Under the stimulation of a god-level power, the god-killing blood sword was completely infuriated. It was like a bloodthirsty and vicious monster that was provoked. It had drank the blood of countless great warriors and would not fear a god-level expert. How could it fear? Wei Sheng raised the god-killing blood sword and held it across his body. He murmured towards the sword, "Are you also unwilling?" Virm. The light of the sword suddenly exploded. Wei Sheng's vision was covered by endless bloody light. The bloody light shot straight into the sky. Within the blood light, Wei Sheng saw countless scenes. An ordinary sword was bathed by the blood of the fallen warriors, and started to gain a thread of intelligence. Fighting, killing, and drinking blood. The cycle repeated and it became stronger and stronger. Blood made it greedy, blood made it cruel and savage. It liked the taste of the power in the blood, it liked strength, it liked winning and bathing in blood after winning. It had changed hands many times, it had been sealed, it had faced destruction. It never knew fear, it never bowed its head, it was savage and bloodthirsty. It never cared to be acknowledged by others, it was proud and rebellious. God-killing blood sword. This name was its glory, and it also gave it a soul. After that, God-killing became its destiny, one god-level warrior after another slain and drained of their blood. A loneliness of tens of thousands of years, it was like a monster sleeping. Wei Sheng's astounding resolve finally received its acceptance. It woke up from its deep sleep, but it looked down on the fights. When Kunlun's immemorial sword finally appeared again, it was completely awakened. The desire to fight once again caused it to show its hidden edges, edges hidden for thousands of years. Today, it countered the first god-level warrior in 10,000 years. It shook, it was excited, it was furious. The desire and greed after a sleep of 10,000 years completely exploded. You are also not willing? Wei Sheng's words suddenly pulled her to that great and magnificent ancient era. Its glory, the power that had slept for 10,000 years, its rebelliousness, its fighting spirit, it exploded like a volcano. Willing? How could it be willing? A vicious shout exploded in Wei Sheng's mind. God-killing. Just these two words made it excited. He felt the bone-aching killing intent from the sword and the desire of the blood sword over 10,000 years. Wei Sheng said in a deep voice, "If that's the case, then let us fight together." Boiling hot blood flowed from the hilt of the sword into Wei Sheng's body like burning lava. Wei Sheng did not refuse. He knew the fight this time was a matter of life and death, not just for him, but for Zhua Mo and the others. Chief Elder that was at the peak of his power definitely had the goal of killing all of Mo Cloud Sea's experts. If all the experts here were killed by Chief Elder, Mo Cloud Sea would immediately crumble. This was not the time to spar, but to fight for life. The The blood that burrowed into his blood contained wild power. This was a mixture of countless god-level experts mixed together. After settling for tens of thousands of years, the power contained did not lessen one bit, but had merged together to become even stronger. For the present Wei Xing, the blood that contained savage but terrifying power was a great poison. But at this time, Wei Xing did not refuse. Usually, he was willing to struggle in the blood sea to temper and comprehend his sword essence and was unwilling to accept this power. What he aimed for was the way of the sword and not strength. He wanted to see the extreme of the sword. Yet at this time, they were forced to a precipice. The difference in power between the two sides was too great. He had never thought that the chief elder would burn himself without regard for the consequences. There was only one result from doing this, all of his power collapsing. But chief elder would be able to kill all of them before his power disappeared. He allowed the burning hot blood to circulate furiously through his body. The strong feeling of burning produced in an instant almost destroyed his resolve. Wei Xing made a muffled grunt, and his straight body shook. Beads of blood seeped out of pores all over his body, forming a layer of blood from head to toe. The sticky blood moved along his body. Zuomo's eyes were filled with shock. He had expected that this battle would be hard, but hadn't expected for it to be so hard. Chief Elder's strength did not shock him. What did shock him was Chief Elder's resolve. This was the part where he had guessed wrong. He hadn't thought that Chief Elder was willing to die with them. This was an old man worthy of admiration. Zuomo looked at the thin figure in the sky. In everyone's eyes, this thin figure was unusually vast now. This person who would give up his life for Tianhuan was worthy of the respect of the world. No one had thought that when the previous experts of the world had declined due to the renewal of the power system, one had not declined with them. The chief elder was the only top expert that stood at the peak of the world in both eras, and he was still at the top in the era of Shen power. He had spent decades in seclusion to create Tianhuan's Shen glyph art. Even if they were enemies now, Zuomo respected chief elder. So powerful. But right now, Zuomo did not have the time to reflect. It was a time of life and death. His gaze as he looked into the sky quickly became twisted, became vicious. If they could not stop Chief Elder, everyone would die here. No one would be able to escape. The strength of the two sides were not on the same level. Everyone would die. This conclusion battered at Zuomo's mind. His gaze swept across Chief Elder. His body couldn't help but shake, the blood flooding into his head. Eldest Xixiang was going all out. No. His dazed gaze swept across a gay, silly bird, Tseng Lianer, Zhong Ru. He had said he would protect Ague, he had said he would protect everyone. The one putting his life on the line should be him. This was his duty. These two sentences echoed in Zuomo's mind. His eyes quickly became bloodshot. Zuomo's head was lowered as he spoke to himself, as though he was sleep-talking. The one putting their life on the line should be me. This is my duty. He repeated firmly, yes, it should be my life, this is my duty. I want to protect Ague. I want to protect everyone. I want to protect Mo Cloud Sea. His voice was like steel. He raised his head, blood spread through his eyes in spiderwebs. He suddenly spread his arms and shouted with all of his strength. I am the king of Mo Cloud Sea. 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 The echo of his shout echoed in the clouds and across the battlefield. Zuomo's bloodshot eyes stared at Chief Elder without any respect or terror. What was there was only burning fighting spirit and resolve. His hidden resolve drowned his mind like a flood. Come, old man. Zuomo bared his teeth. His body gave off countless golden flames. He furiously channeled his Shen power and also urged on the Sun Shen crystal. The Sun Shen crystal still revolved slowly, the essence of the sun dripping out of it and entering Zuomo's body. Zuomo was filled with power, and his Shen power became wild and dangerous. Old man, you think you're the only one willing to burn. Zuomo's Shen power started to burn like a fire. Come, old man. Zuomo gritted out with a twisted expression. His eyes were filled with blood, he seemed to be mad. The burning Shen power was a fire that raged through his body, causing the flames of his body to grow greatly. The burning sun Shen power burned fiercely. He was like the sun in the sky shining down brightly. But not enough. This wasn't enough. The Shen power in his body was already burning to its limits. The only thing he could get more power from was the sun crystal seed, but no matter how he pushed the sun crystal seed, it still revolved slowly. You damned ball. Quicker. Damn it. Zhuamo's remaining composure told him that the present him was still not as powerful as Chief Elder. Not enough. Still not enough. Urgency caused Zhuamo to become reckless. He furiously channeled his burning Shen power to batter at the sun crystal steed. He could not let Ague die. He could not let everyone die. Not even if he died. Zhuamo completely disregarded everything else, these words the only ones in his mind. The sun crystal seed was still slowly spinning. It had increased in speed, but it could not satisfy his need. At the end of his tether, Zhuamo was like a furious lion. He did not use his Shen power to urge on the sun crystal seed, but used his burning Shen power to furiously attack the sun crystal seed. Power! I want more power! The Shen power inside his body attacked at an astounding rate. A crack finally appeared on the surface of the sun crystal seed. Completely berserk, Zhuamo didn't stop and attacked the sun crystal seed with his Shen power even more crazily. The crack gradually grew bigger. Snap! The sun crystal seed suddenly shattered. Chapter 839. A Reason to Fight. I'm the King of Mo Cloud Sea. I'm the King of Mo Cloud Sea. Chief Elder did not hear the echoing voice. Chief Elder was extremely excited. He had stepped into the level of a god. It was hard to describe the feeling of mastering everything in the world. This filled his mind. But what drew his attention was not the joy at stepping into god level but Shen power. Because Chief Elder suddenly found that everything in the world was in his control, even the burning Shen power inside his body was in his control. The mysteries that had been hard to comprehend were clear in his mind. Countless rules of his world flowed through his mind. Many mysteries he had been puzzled by were now clear. A completely new level, a completely new vision. His mind suddenly shifted and he once again reviewed his body. Countless new sensations appeared in his mind. His mind moved and the Shen glyph inside his body silently changed. The furiously burning Shen power stabilized quickly. Yes, stabilize. Moments ago his Shen power had been uncontrollably burning. It was now stable without any of the previous feeling of being out of control. As the Shen glyph stabilized, his wounded body was repaired. At the same time, the impurities in his blood and flesh were quickly refined by his burning Shen power. His blood, flesh, sinews were recombined again to form a strange Shen glyph. A glyph using his body. An unprecedented feeling of strength filled every part of his body. So this was how it was. If Chief Elder didn't know what was going on now, then he wasn't the Chief Elder. Great joy spread through his mind. He looked at the world that had completely changed. He cried in joy. Who would have thought that the key to entering God level was burning Shen power? He had searched for this crucial step for so many years. He had managed to stumble onto this after deciding to sacrifice himself. Only by burning Shen power could he break through the restraints of power and step into God level. There had only been fragmented records of God level. Most of them spoke about how powerful and strong those warriors were, but never anything tangible. Chief Elder didn't know what God level was like. As the only remaining top fighter from the era of Ling power, the foundations he had accumulated were so deep that few could compare. He was only one step away from God level. Yet that step had seemed so far away. Only when he truly stepped into God level did he understand the great power of God level and the feeling of everything in the world in his control. In this brief while, all of the damage caused by burning his Shen power had been repaired. His cultivation quickly stabilized. His body became even stronger. He only needed a bit more time and he would become even more powerful. Because he knew how to have his Shen power grow quickly. God level, this was a dividing line. Only God level experts could count as the top-tier Shen power experts. No wonder Chief Elder cried in joy. He had already prepared himself for sacrifice. He hadn't expected that he didn't need to sacrifice himself. He had become the first God-level expert in 10,000 years. Tianhuan. Tianhuan was now the top power. Entering God level, his longevity would greatly increase and could be more than 3,000 years. He could protect Tianhuan for 3,000 years. For the present, Shen power experts were the strongest strategic fighters. As long as he did not die, even Kunlun would not dare to act against Tianhuan. A God-level expert could restrain and destroy a Jie on their own. The difference between God level and those below God level was an abyss that was uncrossable. It could not be made up by sheer numbers. Just he alone could slaughter this group from Mo Cloud C. Haha. Even a person as serene as Chief Elder couldn't help but roar with laughter. Suddenly, Chief Elder made a surprise sound. His gaze moved from Wei Xing to Zuemo, his pupils expanding. Zuemo's eyes were empty as though his soul was sucked away. Not good. Chief Elder's expression changed slightly. A strong feeling of danger rose. Before he could react, his vision lit up. Boom! A burning pillar of fire shot into the sky from where Zuemo stood. The entire sky seemed to light up, the thick black clouds in the sky igniting like cotton and were quickly burned away by the golden fire. The black night was driven away, and a sun slowly rose. Birdsong suddenly came from within the golden pillar of light. 9 three-footed golden crows flew around the pillar of fire. Inside the pillar of fire, Zuemo's clothing was torn, his body that seemed to be made from golden liquid floating in the pillar. That pair of empty eyes stared at Chief Elder. Astounding fire exploded out of Zuemo's body. All of the fire in this pillar of fire had come from Zuemo's body. Such a domineering flame. Such powerful Shen power. Chief Elder's expression changed. The pillar of fire seemed to be like a sun. If it went out of control, this Jie would turn into a sea of fire no one would be able to escape. But then Chief Elder's expression recovered. He did not care if this Jie existed or not. His gaze held slight pity. It really was a pity that a genius like this was fated to die at his hands. Burning his Shen power like this was clearly beyond the limits that Zuemo could tolerate. There would only be one result, burning into dust. They both burned their Shen power. The reason that Chief Elder could enter God level was because he had a foundation built over centuries. Zuemo had not accumulated enough, and burning like this would only lead to his death. But standing out in a time of danger, as expected of the king of Mo Cloud C to have such a sense of responsibility. Chief Elder admired Zuemo greatly. If Tianhuan had a disciple like this, he would definitely nurture the other. Pity, he was not a disciple of Tianhuan. Chief Elder completely relaxed. Zuemo was fated to die. The greatest threat to Tianhuan was finally resolved. Having lost Zuemo, even if Mo Cloud C didn't have to face Tianhuan, they would still end up collapsed due to internal conflicts. Chief Elder was filled with confidence in his strength. A faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Young master. Ague stared at the flaming figure and her eyes could not move away. She did not hesitate. Purple flames climbed onto the bone armor. Silent purple fire gave off astounding presence. The purple fire grew stronger, the presence even more terrifying. Her gaze was locked onto Zuemo, her expression calm, a faint smile on her mouth. She was not panicking, she was not sad, she was not in pain. Her eyes seemed to see through the world and were as still as water. No matter what would happen today, she would follow young master. Never abandoning. Even if they died, dying together was still a kind of good fortune. Snap, snap, snap. The purple chains that represented the undying Shen punishments snapped from the middle. The snapped purple chains burrowed out of Agui's body and wrapped onto the flame-covered purple armor like snakes. The space around her was slowly being swallowed by the purple flames. Endless darkness spread from that small figure restrained and covered in purple flames. Gray and white slowly took over the eyes, but her gaze did not leave the figure within the flames. Unwilling to descend into darkness and be chained, just to be with you. Sung Lianer looked at the sky. Shock slowly disappeared from her face. The terrifying presence of the 4 people above almost suffocated her. The Tianhuan disciples could not tolerate such presence and had almost all left the battlefield. The presence was too strong. That presence that was like the world pressing down was suffocating. But Xianxia and the other Mo Cloud Sea experts did not retreat. Staring at Zhuo Mo within the fire, Xianxia suddenly smiled. She said to herself, "Why am I still participating? This guy is about to die. In the future, there will no longer be any paired cultivation. This battle is worthless. There is really no reason." Tilting her head and thinking for a while, Xianxia spoke again. "Oh, Azim, it is the greatest embarrassment to flee the battle or will fight while betting their life. All right, for the glory of the... This reason is pretty good. There's no more paired cultivation. This old man should die. Oh, this is also a good reason. Mo Cloud sees people aren't bad. That guy isn't bad. This reason is also pretty good. Oh, so hard. Fine. I'm too lazy to think. These reasons are enough." Xianxia raised her head and straightened her body. Her dark red dress that was slightly damaged flapped without any wind. She was like the rose in winter. Even at such a dangerous time, her beauty that could turn the world upside down was unable to be dismissed. Xianxia's presence continued to rise. A cool crescent moon appeared behind her back. Snap. The crescent moon snapped into countless pieces that flew into Xianxia's body. Xianxia trembled violently. Her closed eyes and her fluttering long eyelashes showed she was enduring great pain at the moment. Moments later, her body stopped trembling and she calmed. A seductive smile appeared on the corner of her mouth like a winter rose blooming. She opened her eyes, and 2 crescent moons flashed in them. Zhongru looked into the sky, his gaze like warm sunlight as he smiled softly. That voice which had been determined and grave even in the thunder and wind still seemed to echo in his mind. Zhongru wishes, forsaking the path to Buddhahood, to use this body as a Vajra to protect Darren. A Buddha abandonment death wish with the body of a Vajra, protecting Darren. This sentence had been carved into his heart. He could not watch as Darren sacrificed himself to protect him. Protecting Darren was his duty. Zhongru reached out a thin hand. Circles of sutra characters seemed to wrap onto his arm like bandages. Starting from his fingers, to his arm, to his shoulder, and then his entire body, one circle after another that unraveled and flew out. With the 3 manifestation treasure staff in hand, Zhongru's expression was dignified as a great presence erupted. Chapter 840. This is Mo Cloud Sea. Woli, it's time to fight for our lives. Luo Li smiled helplessly. All right, Woli acknowledged, her cold and beautiful face unaffected. I might die, you won't even smile for me? Before death, leave a beautiful memory. This way, the sacrifice will have meaning. Luo Li complained. It had been a long time since he had seen Woli smile. If we are dead, one will not have memories, Woli said coolly. You're right, so sad. Luo Li spread his hands with a distressed expression. Fight. Woli flew up like a sword coming out of its sheath with its naked edges. Other than being able to fight side by side with Woli, which comforts me, there really isn't anything else that I anticipate. This way, Xixiang will definitely scold me for putting women before friends. Luo Li muttered to himself. Woli stopped walking. She turned her face and stared at Luo Ai for a long time. Before death, do you have anything to say to me? Luo Li had an expression of anticipation. Yes. Woli nodded. Luo Li was overjoyed. Quick, speak. Your Xixiang is right, Woli said. Luo Li had a dazed expression as he froze where stood. Moments later, he reacted and shook his head as he smiled. He raised his head to look towards Zhuo Mo in the sky. He couldn't help but think of the time back at Wukong Mountains. He bullied Xixiang and then was beaten like a dog by Xixiang. Oh, he was actually missing. So embarrassing. Oh, actually that time where everyone had been in bed rest after the sword test conference. Those days had been pretty good. He had never seen them in such a sorry state after that. He thought of how he had cried when he saw Xixiang after all the hardship and being imprisoned by the Mo. So embarrassing. Luo Li gazed at Zhuo Mo. Why do you have to charge at the front? Really, you are usually such a clever person. Really nothing could be done. Alright, since you are charging, then what else can I do? I can't really let Woli say that I put women above friendship, That would be such a loss of face. There seemed to be something burning in his chest. Luo Li suddenly smiled and shouted, "Wali!" Wali turned her head. "Burn," Luo Li said viciously. There was fire burning in the youth's eyes. Wali acknowledged. "Another one." Chief Elder was slightly shocked. It was already unexpected that Zhuo was burning Shun power this way. To do something so suicidal requires great courage. But he saw many of these people from Mo Cloud C burning their Shun power one after another. This gave him an even greater shock. Don't these people know that they would die? They didn't need to do this. With Wei Sheng and Zhuo, there was a large chance they would stop him. The rest had a great possibility of escaping with their lives. Why were they doing this? Didn't they know that these actions were meaningless? Zhuo was fated to die. Mo Cloud C was fated to crumble. Their actions were like moths flying towards the flame, unable to win any chances for them. Chief Elder could understand sacrifice, but he thought that sacrifice needed to have value, needed to have meaning. On this, Kunlun was even more of an extreme. In the eyes of those mad people, they were one part of Kunlun's weight. If needed, they would throw themselves onto the scale to make up the balance. Mo Cloud C was an unreasonable group of people. For some reason, Chief Elder suddenly felt a chill. He felt something else from these Mo Cloud C people. Unlike the mad obsession of Kunlun, Kunlun's madness came from continuously brainwashing their disciples over a long period of time. Kunlun was a sect that made people shudder. In Kunlun, the individual was forever insignificant. For Kunlun, everyone could be sacrificed, no matter if you were willing or not. This was a ruthlessness that was terrifying. But these people here were not fanatics. You could not feel any madness from them usually. Sacrifice had almost never occurred at Mo Cloud C. Chief Elder had always thought that Mo Cloud C was a smaller version of Tianhuan. They were like Tianhuan, they cared about profit, just like a group of merchants counting on their fingers every day what they could gain. The rumors said that Zhuo had never done an profitable business. In Chief Elder's view, Mo Cloud C's viciousness was only a method for them to get more profit, just like their cunning. Only now did Chief Elder understand that he was wrong, and ridiculously so. Mo Cloud C's similarity with Tianhuan was only on the surface. Only when it was truly a time of life and death could one feel the great difference between the two. Tianhuan were true merchants, Mo Cloud C only acted like merchants. They were like a group of wolves. When Zhuo, the wolf leader, decided to sacrifice himself, no one fled, everyone chose the same path. Even if they knew that their choice to follow was not worth much, would not change much, even if they knew that this choice would lead them to all of their deaths. But they still would choose this, because they had chosen to follow that figure. Chief Elder didn't know how Zhuo had done this. Personal charisma? Benefits? Favor? It was a terrifying ability to unite people. Chief Elder changed expression. He looked at the youth floating in the flames. He didn't know how this youth was able to cause so many people to willingly give up their lives to follow him. Just as he didn't know what gave these people such unity. But he knew that the strength of this kind of power was so great that it could change many things. Tianhuan did not have this power. Tianhuan had lost the power they had originally had. The oaths of his youth, they had scattered in the wind. Looking at the Tianhuan disciples that were panically fleeing, and comparing to these Mo Cloud C youths that were furiously burning their lives, a sorrow arose in Chief Elder. Today, he finally knew why Mo Cloud C could defeat Tianhuan. Yes, Tianhuan's failure was fated. He finally understood. He didn't have any joy left inside. A sigh echoing in his mind, Chief Elder threw away his stray thoughts. His expression became grave. He decided that he would reconstruct Tianhuan's banner, Tianhuan's soul after this battle. Just like these Mo Cloud C youth in front of him, just like those youths who had sworn oaths alongside him. For Tianhuan. For belief. Come, King of Mo Cloud C. Chief Elder bowed gravely towards Zhuo in the fire. In a nondescript corner, many eyes looked at everything happening in the sky. Their expressions were complex. There was shock, respect, pity, murderousness, and relief. Every person around him had some expression of respect on their faces. The people in the sky were worthy of their respect. I hadn't thought that Cloud C was so scary. Those people are mad. Fortunately for us, Tianhuan Old Man has taken this for us. Otherwise, even if we are able to defeat Cloud C would be very strong before death. Lin Qian was silent. This battle had given him a great blow. Not just him, the other Kunlun disciples around him were also astounded. Let's first find Zhongde, someone said. Yes, let them burn. While both sides are preoccupied, we will take the opportunity to kill Zhongde. The day that Kunlun unites the land is not far away. Another disciple agreed. Everyone nodded. In a battle as intense as this, it was certain both sides would be wounded. Kunlun would become the only beneficiary. This was also when Zhongde's defenses would be weakest. If they could kill Zhongde using this opportunity, Xixian would descend into chaos. They had planned this action for a long time. They had used almost all of their power to get here undetected. Their goal was the same as Tianhuan: assassinate Zhongde. To ensure they could kill with one blow, Lin Qian had come. If Zhongde died, Xixian would fall into chaos. Kunlun would take the chance to replace them. They hadn't expected the situation to progress better than they had expected. Tianhuan and Cloud C were fighting to such great lengths. The astounding unity that Cloud C showed made even Kunlun felt a great pressure. After this battle, there will be no more Cloud C. These disciples who had their eyes on top of their heads couldn't help but sigh in relief. Lin Qian nodded. Everyone scatter, be careful not to attract the attention of these people. When you find Zhongde, immediately send a message back. Our target is still Zhongde. This is not the time to relax. Everyone be alert, do not fail now. Everyone nodded and then disappeared. Lin Qian did not move. He had come because he knew that Zhuo had a large number of experts. Right now, Zhuo and Cloud C's experts were completely drawn to Tianhuan Chief Elder. Zhongde's defenses would be at their weakest and they did not need him. His mind was completely drawn into this battle. No one knew that the immemorial Shen sword in his hand was trembling continuously and seemed to resonate with something. So this was Cloud C. Zhuo's mind was blank, everything around him golden. He seemed to be struggling in a sea of fire. A long time later, he heard an almost imperceptible murmur. In the king of Cloud C. This murmur was too weak, so weak it could hardly be heard. But Zhuo heard it. For some reason, he heard it clearly. Yet his mind was not clear. This voice was so familiar, so hot, so painful. Where was this? In the king of Cloud C. King of Cloud C? These words seemed to have a certain power. Zhuo's scattered thoughts gathered along with the words. In the king of Cloud C. Zhuo could not open his eyes. His eyelids were as heavy as mountains. He felt as though his body was a volcano about to erupt. If he was the least bit careless, he would explode. In the king of Cloud C. Having recovered some clarity, Zhuo finally found the one who had been sleep-talking was himself. He had not failed everyone. The emotions that came with the words caused him to feel slightly stronger. In the king of Cloud C. I need to be clear-headed. I need to forget. I need to protect the Gue. I need to protect everyone. His mind scattered, Zhuo chanted repeated to himself. His voice was weak but unconsciously grew more and more determined. Power gathered in small streams, his scattered consciousness slowly gathering. He used all of his strength to open his eyes. A thread of light entered his vision. He smiled like a burning flame. Come, old man. Chapter 841, The Destruction Chief Elder did not want to keep waiting. Cloud C's strength astounded him. While their reckless burning would lead to their deaths, but they were a great threat to him before their deaths. Their combined strength was unable to dismissed. There were some names among these people that Chief Elder had never heard of before. In truth, before today he even felt slightly dismissive towards Zhuo and Wei Sheng. But now, all of that underestimation had faded. Every one person in front of him was an opponent worthy of respect. To die for their beliefs, they died in their appointed place. Chief Elder lamented as his presence rose. The black clouds gathered again, thunder roaring as the ground suddenly split open. The great fissures appeared, each was like a terrifying wound that split the earth, growing larger and larger. The earth moved, the mountains shook, the sky changed color. All of the central plains was in his grasp. Every stalk of grass, every tree, mountain, rock, they were all weapons in his hands. The long hair of the chief elder danced in the wind, countless bolts of lightning swimming around his body. His emaciated body was that of a god. A suffocatingly powerful presence was like a surging tide that battered at everything. The world trembled. Everything will end. Chief Elder murmured lightly as though he was sighing. He had decided to completely destroy this Jia. After today, there would be no more central plains. The cracks on the ground grew bigger, the red lava erupted like the blood of the earth. Boom, boom, boom. Thick lightning flashed across the sky and then shot down to the ground. When they landed among the boiling lava, they lit up a sea of fire. The scene was like the apocalypse. All the people in the central plains were in a panic. Terror quickly spread through the crowds, hopelessness appearing on their faces. The sky was dyed by the glow of lava. The unstoppable lightning destroyed all life. All of the transportation formations had become ineffective. There was a great power that cut off the entire Jia from the outside world. Chief Elder looked expressionlessly at everything happening. He had ignited the core of the Jia. In 10 hours, Central Plains would be completely destroyed, and all of the people in this Jia would be destroyed as well. Time to go. As he stepped into God level, he was able to survive in the endless void. He used Shun glyphs to seal the Central Plain and ignite the center of the Central Plains. The enemy had to reach the God level in order to break through. Otherwise, they would definitely be unable to escape this Jia. There was only one fate, to die with the Central Plains. He was not the one to create this move. In the ancient era, sealing a Jia that had enemies was something frequently used against enemies that did not have a God-level expert. This move also had something else great about it. Even if the other could break through the restraints, they would be consumed by the endless void. Those not in God level could not survive in the endless void. Even if these people burned themselves, they could not reach God level. Chief Elder was skilled in formations. He had left an imprint in Tianhuan. If he could flee into the endless void, he could quickly return to Tianhuan by homing in on the imprint. He did not search for the disciples that came with him. He was completely disappointed with those disciples. If they could be like the youths of Mo Cloud C, he would have some hope. As long as he was alive, 5,000 years was enough for him to rebuild Tianhuan's soul. 10,000 years ago, that world that had been erased by the strongest would rise again from his hands. He didn't know what people in the future would write about him. However, so what? As long as he was present, Tianhuan would grow stronger. History was forever written by the victors. History was in his hands. Old man, you think you can flee? A voice that was gritted through teeth interrupted his thoughts. Chief Elder raised his head, and what entered his eyes was a pair of eyes on fire. In the two balls of fire, what he saw was resistance and rebelliousness. Chief Elder frowned slightly. Zhuo Mo's gaze was unusually penetrating. Zhuo Mo bore the bone-aching pain. The essence of the sun crystal seed rampaged through his body. The essence of the sun that was overwhelmingly abundant was the power of the sun. Even if it was just a sun crystal seed, the power contained in it was not something that Zhuo Mo could endure. Even no one in the Sun tribe dared to use it like this. The god-level warrior of the Sun tribe searched for an sun's embryo in the void, and sealed it into a sun crystal seed. The sun crystal seed was thought of as the relic of the Sun tribe and passed down through generations. Dozens of successors drew power from it. No one had never dared to break the sun crystal seed. Zhuo Mo felt as though he was a ball of fire. Every inch of skin was burning. Fortunately, the great pain made him focus. It made him able to focus more on Chief Elder. The golden flames that erupted out of his body and twisted the Chief Elder in his view to become twisted. However, in his unprecedented focus, he could clearly lock onto the other. "Wanna leave?" Zhuo Mo bared his teeth. whether in pain or disdain. His figure disappeared into the air. A cold light flashed through Chief Elder's eyes. A Shun glyph appeared without warning on his side. Boom! A blurry ball of flame viciously hit the Shun glyph. The Shun glyph crumbled with an explosion. Chief Elder's eye twitched. Then a ball of golden flame hit his waist. Chief Elder's figure disappeared in ripples. Zhuamo's fist hit empty air. Chief Elder's figure appeared in the sky above and behind Zhuamo. He pointed at Zhuamo. Boom boom boom. Lightning flashed through the clouds and struck towards Zhuamo. Dozens of bolts of lightning gathered together and formed a thick and terrifying bolt of lightning that accurately hit Zhuamo. The golden flames around Zhuamo sprayed out. Zhuamo did not seem to feel it and leapt forward again. At this time, Zhuamo was completely in a berserk fury. His consciousness was burned blurry by the sun essence. He seemed to be struggling and floating in an endless sea of fire. There was only one thought in his dazed mind. Kill the old man. Kill the damned old man. Zhuamo's eyes burned, the golden flames spitting. He suddenly turned around, his face enveloped in flames without any emotion. His right hand swung a great golden axe, his body bowing as he threw. Within the flames, a Sun Shin axe suddenly shot out. Chief Elder felt a thread of fear. His eyes narrowed. He didn't seem to move. A Shun glyph appeared in front of him and perfectly blocked the Shin axe. The Sun Shin axe suddenly turned into many Shin axes in the air. They covered the sky and the sun, tens of thousands of them. Each Sun Shin axe burned with golden flames, trailing long tails of golden fight like a spectacular meteor shower. This move was astounding in its presence, yet Chief Elder did not feel any fear. With a cold snort, the Shun glyph in front of him furiously spread in all directions. In a blink, the Shun glyph turned into an enormous net over 50 li long. The Sun Shin axes landed like rain on the Shun glyphs. The Shun glyphs trembled, the tens of thousands of blossoms of flame hanging on it burning intensely. Zhuamo saw his attack stopped and howled. An orange Sun Shin axe appeared in his hand and was thrown hard. The orange Sun Shin axe was unusually detailed, covered in packed sun glyphs. A thread of golden fire hissed on the blade of the axe. Such a detailed and well-formed Sun Shin axe was definitely the strongest axe Zhuamo had ever created. It was like burning piece of metal and immediately penetrated the Shun glyph net. Chief Elder's face changed slightly. He reached towards the Sun Shin axe flying towards him. A Shun glyph took form immediately. Then, the Shun glyph split in the middle to form a black crack that quickly grew larger. It was like a black mouth that swallowed the Sun Shin axe. The endless void. Compared to the void skyly fire that had been summoned of the endless void before, Chief Elder's moves were multiple times stronger. He was masterfully using the endless void. Chief Elder felt slightly relieved. The power inside Zhuamo was strong, but he clearly did not know how to use it. He could not truly express the power. Yet at this time, a vicious and sharp sword hum suddenly rose from behind the Chief Elder. Chief Elder's expression became grave. Blood quickly permeated into Wei Sheng's body like water sucked into sand. Wei Sheng's eyes were closed, his determined face an unusual white. Even unconscious, his body was ruler straight. There was an ancient character carved out of blood on each of his hands. Left hand God, right hand killing, it was the words, God killing. Unusually, there wasn't any hint of blood on the sword in his hand. It was clean as though it had just been wiped down. There wasn't any tang of blood. The unconscious body of Wei Sheng suddenly shuddered. He slowly opened his eyes. The eyes which had been like bloody glass now were without any blood. They were clear and transparent, except that the pupils had turned into the shape of the sword. His eyes were two swords. He floated in the air. The lava below his feet that had been shooting into the air seemed to be pushed down by an invisible hand. The sword in his hand hummed lightly. A vicious and bloodthirsty hum of the sword sounded through the entire jia. The primitive and ancient presence contained a thick bloody tang that rushed into the surroundings like a flood. In the air, Wei Sheng's cold gaze landed on Chief Elder, the sword in his hand flashing with an eerie light. A cruel and cold smile floated at the corner of Wei Sheng's mouth. The scent of a god. The tone was filled with viciousness as though it was a completely different person. Before the sound ended, his body disappeared from the air. In the next moment, he appeared in space. The sky behind him seemed to be dyed red by blood. The sword shook, and sword essence fell down like a blood-colored waterfall. Sword essence that had to be counted in the thousands completely shrouded Chief Elder. Chief Elder felt his body tighten. His entire body was surrounded by a slight piercing pain. He felt a shudder. Thousands of tiny sword essence didn't run astray at all. All of the sword essences were targeted at him. Such a powerful strike. The right hand of Lin Qian, who was hiding in the shadows, trembled around its grip on his sword as a cold light flashed through his eyes. Chapter 842, Great Trouble. Wei Sheng's strike was the blood-colored sword essence flowing like a great river, like a waterfall 10,000 zhang tall as it locked onto Chief Elder. The thick tang of blood caused Chief Elder to unconsciously frown. His gaze locked onto the spotless sword in Wei Sheng's hand, his expression grave. That was not ordinary. It probably was just a step behind Kunlun's immemorial. Chief Elder was slightly shocked. It was already shocking that Kunlun had found the immemorial Shun sword, but he knew the price Kunlun had paid for Lin Qian's immemorial Shun sword. The essence of Wei Sheng's sword was not as pure as the immemorial Shun sword, but its murderousness was so great he didn't know how much blood it had drank to form. He hadn't through such a vicious weapon existed in the world. The vicious presence around Wei Sheng and the slightly evil expression were an extreme contrast from Wei Sheng's previous state. The sword's soul had taken possession? Wei Sheng was a person of such strong resolve. He definitely would not have been overcome, so it was likely he had let the sword's soul into his body. In a blink, Chief Elder understood and his wariness increased. He admired Wei Sheng. In terms of talent, among the young people Chief Elder had seen, Wei Sheng most likely wouldn't even enter the top 50. However, Wei Sheng had steel-like resolve, a spirit that did not give up. That was what created his accomplishments. His resolve had spread through his body. A body like that could tolerate greater power. In a flash, countless thoughts flashed through Chief Elder's mind. He did not feel any fear. No matter if it was Zhuo Mo or Wei Sheng, they did not have enough of a foundation accumulated. Forcibly raising their cultivation like this seemed powerful, but there was still not enough to compete with a true god level. Do not underestimate this hair-thin line. It was the difference of the sky to the earth. Their understanding of the world was not on the same level at all. The effect of pure power without comprehension was not as great as they imagined. They underestimated the god level. Numerous brown Shun glyphs rose out of the ground under Chief Elder's feet and grew upwards like vines. A Shun glyph wall suddenly rose from under his feet. The waterfall of sword essence hit the Shun glyph wall. Boom! A deafening sound. Sword essence scattered. That thin Shun glyph wall was unmoved. No matter how the sword essences charged, it did not move at all. It was like the strongest rock along the ocean. No matter how strong or fierce the wave, they would turn into beads of water when they hit it and would not damage it at all. Crack, crack, crack. A spider web of cracks rapidly appeared on the ground under the Shun glyph. The cracks spread at a rapid rate. Boom, boom, boom. The sword essences continued the ferocious attack, and the Shun glyph wall finally shook. Chief Elder's expression changed slightly, light flashing through his eyes as his body suddenly disappeared from where he stood. Boom! The Shun glyph wall finally could not withstand the attack and shattered. The surging sword essence hit the ground hard. The blood sword river entered the ground without any effort like a knife cutting tofu. Boom, 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 great vibrations came from deep within the earth. An enormous bottomless pit over 10 li in diameter appeared on the ground. Chief Elder narrowed his eyes, his heart shuddering. What sword was that? How could it possess such pure power? The reason the immemorial Shen sword was powerful was because its sword essence was pure. When it dominated the world, all bowed before it. But this sword, the sword essence could not be considered top tier, but such a savage and fiercely unreasonable power was really shocking. Unless a name from the legends appeared in his mind. Chief Elder stared at the sword in Wei Sheng's hands, his eyes lighting up. Yet at this time, Great murderousness shrouded him. His body felt cold and reflexively a Shun glyph appeared behind his back. Bam! The Shun glyph cracked like glass. Chief Elder was once again startled. He made another Shun glyph and retreated. The Shun glyph was cut easily like it was paper. A purple energy flashed right next to his body, the thick murderousness causing goosebumps to rise on his skin. Before he could attack in return, a purple energy suddenly shot towards his face. Chief Elder pointed with a serious expression. A Shun glyph appeared out of the air. The purple energy did not enter the Shun glyph nor cut it. The Shun glyph seemed to be a gentle flower that closed and wrapped around the purple shadow. Chief Elder chanted inside his mind, and the Shun glyph started to explode in segments. A gray armored figure wrapped in chains appeared in front of him. His pupils suddenly contracted. Undying Shun punishment. Zhong Ru changed with a bowed head, his hair turning white at a visible rate. His body was so thin that it would fall if the wind blew. Only his eyes became even clearer and brighter. Numerous sutra characters the size of a finger spun around him. The lotus flower mark on his forehead lit up and slowly flew out of his forehead. It landed onto the ground and materialized into a lotus flower bigger than a prayer mat. The lotus flower seemed alive, pink and tender. Zhong Ru raised a foot, and the lotus flower moved under his foot. He stepped onto the lotus flower cross-legged. A wisp of fire suddenly appeared out of every sutra character. It was the fire of wish power. Zhong Ru had a smile on his face and no pain at all. What burned was the fire of wish power, his true heart. Buddha abandonment death wish. Zhong Ru's harmonious gaze was calm and determined. Even now, when he was close to being known as the strongest dhyana shio in the world, his heart was just as it was in the beginning and had never changed at all. With the body of Vajra, protect Darren. Every sutra character burned wish power. Astounding waves of power entered his body. The wish power lotus under his body burned like fire at his body. His expression was calm and without any pain. His calm dhyana heart was like a burning ball of fire. When all of the sutra characters were burned away. When the wish power lotus under him had burned into ash. The power inside Zhong Ru's body reached a peak. There was a smile on the corner of his mouth. It wasn't the mannerism of that great dhyana shio, but that sincere and honest smile of that youth from Little Mountain Jia that only knew a single fist scripture. Darren, let us fight together. He took a deep breath. The air was pulled. A long inhale sounded like the breathing of a monster waking up. A silent vibration gathered at his right fist. He gave a thunderous shout. Zhong Ru punched into the sky. Chief Elder, who had been staring at a Gui, felt a feeling of danger. His mind moved and he was about to escape when he suddenly found that the air around him was like in thick bog. It had a strange stickiness. This was... His eyebrows jumped. His hands moved and a Shun glyph appeared. Pop, pop, pop. A string of explosions sounded in the space around him. Then his body felt lighter. Then the Shun glyph under his feet flashed and his body disappeared from his spot and appeared in the sky nearby. Wish power. How was there such powerful wish power? Chief Elder was astounded. He suddenly turned his face and stared at the figure on the ground who had their fist up in the air. Even in the past Xian Kong temple, no one had such powerful wish power. Chief Elder's expression changed. Tianhuan and Xian Kong temple had fought both secretly and in the openly for many years. Everyone knew each other very well. He had never seen such strong wish power even from the oldest generation. Chief Eider could see with a glance that Zhong Ru was burning his wish power. Wish power was a very special and dangerous power. Wish power that was hard for ordinary people to understand was not so mysterious in the eyes of people as powerful as Chief Elder. However, this did not mean he was willing to touch it. The wish, it was the base for forming wish power. What it needed was the strongest of wishes, a wish true to one's heart. The other rule of wish power was sacrifice. It referred to the power that was produced when one was willing to give up everything else to achieve this wish. There were two reasons why wish power was so powerful. One was the person's heart, the other was sacrifice. One with a true heart would not go astray. The sacrifice was even more extreme. The person would forget all of their other worries, their heart even clearer. The more they sacrificed, the stronger the wish power produced. Even God-level experts were wary of this kind of power. Because this was not the power of the world, this was the power of a person. Such strong with power, this person, great trouble. Wish power was enough trouble to deal with. But this person actually burned wish power. Would anyone do this? Chief Elder suddenly had a strong impulse to swear. He suddenly found that his situation seemed to have become slightly bad. Zhuo Mo was the strongest in power, but it was clear that he was not in a good state, a confused state between clarity and befuddlement. Wei Xing was much more of a threat. If he really had the god-killing blood sword in his hand, then he would be in great trouble today. Something that had disappeared for tens of thousands of years, like the undying Shen punishment, actually appeared in front of him. Chief Elder almost didn't believe his eyes. Adding on Zhong Ru, who was burning wish power, Chief Elder felt a headache just thinking about it. He suddenly remembered there were two other people. He couldn't help but turn his face. His face quickly darkened. Two crescent moons appeared in Tseng Lianer's eyes. There was none of the indolent temptation she usually wore, only a strong feeling of danger. Her two crescent moon earrings clinked. A strong pressure came with the appearance of her floor-length deep red dress. A silver crescent moon flowed with light behind her. When moon Shen power burned, it was not flames, but a moon-colored flow that appeared as cool as water. The icy moon flame flow caused every nerve in her to tremble. However, her expression was normal. Resonating with her, a ray of condensed moon essence shot down from the full moon in the sky and landed on Tseng Lianer. She could feel the wondrous connection between her and the full moon high above her. The moon essence of the full moon flowed into her body and that cold moon flame flow. The power grew rapidly inside of her. She was at her most powerful state. Suddenly, she felt something and looked towards the moon in the sky. The moon suddenly lit up, spraying out countless moon essences. Lines of moon essences fell down from the full moon. In a blink, innumerable threads of moon essence fell like silk and covered all of the central plains. Chapter 843, God Level. A wisp of fire suddenly jumped inside of Luo Li's body that was gradually turning ethereal. His fading body was like cotton soaked in oil and started to burn with a whoosh. The flames followed along the chain between the two and spread towards Wali. Wali suddenly turned her head and looked at Luo Li covered in flames. Her cool eyes became gentle and then became determined. Ever since she was created, she knew that she was his sword. The sword should be strong, sharp, only then could she protect him. She knew his thoughts and resolve just like she understood his emotions. Surviving together, never abandoning each other. She was his sword. She was here to help him fulfill his duties. The flames quickly spread to her along the chains. She was born for him, from him, and her heart was unusually calm at being able to turn into dust in his flames. The flames burrowed into her body. Powerful Shen power formed in her body like a roiling volcano. Luo Li. Her lips parted slightly, her murmured filled with soft emotion. That even fainter figure in the flames seemed to hear her murmur and shook slightly. The fire became dimmer and dimmer. The chain was burnt into dust. The last wisp of flame entered her body, and she could feel that familiar presence inside her body. He had not left. Never to be parted. Wali's face became determined again. She was the sword. She had to complete his last wishes. His wishes were her wishes. His duty was her duty. Living and dying together, never apart. Another figure flew into the air. Chief Elder made a slight sound of surprise. It was a sword spirit. It was the first time he saw such a lifelike sword spirit. What shocked him the most was that the sword spirit did not seem any different compare with a living person. This was impossible. Even Kunlun could not make a sword spirit become like a living person. Sword spirits were created from sword scriptures. No one could create other people, even God-level experts definitely could not. These people from Mo Cloud C, they were really a group of freaks. Chief Elder was not very surprised by Tseng Lianer's abilities. It had been known a long time ago that Tseng Lianer had the complete inheritance of the Moon Shen power. Many sects had secretly desired to capture Lianer and get the moon Shen power from her. In the end, they had to give up on their desire due to the strength of Mo Cloud C. The Moon Shen Temple had not been as powerful as the Sun Shen Temple, but their line of succession had not been broken. In any era, they maintained their own inheritance. This alone was a proof of their power. Looking at the sky, Chief Elder's mind finally was affected. A sun, a full moon, a bloody sky. Combined they formed an eerie picture. Even Chief Elder had never seen such a picture. This time, it really was troublesome. He felt slight regret. He should have left a bit earlier. Now, he was surrounded by 6 people. While none of them were God level, but each of them were just a step away from God level. Chief Elder would naturally not fear if it was just 1 or 2 of them, but 6 at once, and each of them with eerie and strange powers. Chief Elder immediately felt a great pressure. Also, Chief Elder glanced at a nondescript corner in the distance out of the corner of his eye. Kunlun's people wanted to take advantage of the chaos. Chief Elder noticed Lin Qian and the people from Kunlun hiding when he entered God level. The presence of Lin Qian's immemorial Shun sword was too strong. If he used this opportunity to kill Lin Qian and these people, then no one could stop Tianhuan from dominating. But Chief Elder was very wary of the sword in Lin Qian's hands. Normal people might not know about this sword, but how could Chief Elder not? The immemorial Shen sword combined with the soul of the previous Kunlun sect leader allowed the power of this sword to reach a terrifying level. Even if a god level was touched by this sword, it would be dangerous. Therefore, Chief Elder's mind moved and he had thought of a wonderful idea. If he closed off and then detonated Central Plains Jia, Lin Qian could probably escape using the power of the immemorial sword. However, he would definitely pay a significant price, and the other people with him would die. Wounded, Lin Qian would have to go into seclusion for many years after returning to Kunlun in order to recover. Those years would be enough for him to lead Tianhuan to conquer the lands. But before that, he had to leave this place alive. Chief Elder remained on alert for Lin Qian, who had been in hiding in wait all this time. Lin Qian with his immemorial Shun sword was like a poisonous snake. If he showed any weakness, this poisonous snake would bare its fangs and inject the venom into the body of the enemy. In Chief Elder's view, Lin Qian was undoubtedly the greatest threat. These people from Mo Cloud C would definitely die, meaning Lin Qian's goal could only be him. Consequently, even though he had been fighting the group of Mo Cloud C, Chief Elder's mind was on guard against Lin Qian attacks. However, these people from Mo Cloud C astounded Chief Elder. He suddenly found that leaving would not be as easy after being surrounded by these 6 people. If he could not leave in 10 hours, the collapsing Central Plains would bury him as well. Zhou Mo and the other 5 people did not know the thoughts of Chief Elder. Their bloodlust had taken over. Fire coming all over his body, Zhou Mo was like a furious lion that madly attacked. There seemed to be a vast and surging power inside his body, like a sea of fire that made him a wild beast that did not know weariness. If Zhou Mo's consciousness was clear, then the Chief Elder would probably have trouble just facing Zhou Mo alone. Zhou Mo was like a sun. There seemed to be endless light and heat inside his body. For some unknown reason, Zhou Mo could resonate with the sun above. A full sun burned above their heads. Under the sunlight, Zhou Mo became even more powerful. Wei Sheng, who had been taken over by the god-killing blood sword, swelled with murderousness that had hid for tens of thousands of years. Also, the sword was more experienced than Wei Sheng in battle. The blood of those god-level experts had contained their fighting instincts before death. He casually swung and every move was astoundingly powerful. The thick tang of blood contained terrifying power. Compared to Zhou Mo, who was not mentally in control, Wei Sheng was a bigger threat. Chief Elder had just dodged a Sun Shen axe when 3 bloody floods formed by 3 sword essences howled towards him from 3 different directions like pythons. If he was hit by one of them, even with the Shun glyph protecting his body, it would not be a good experience. More importantly, he would lose the initiative. The Shun glyph flashed under his feet and Chief Elder disappeared from where he stood. He had just appeared 300 zhang away when the threads falling from the moon imperceptibly shook. Chief Elder seemed to detect it and hurriedly dodged again. Just as he disappeared, a curved blade cut through where he had just been. When Chief Elder's figure reappeared, a Gui's attack silently appeared behind his back. Chief Elder felt a thread of anger at being forced into such a sorry state. He snorted. Countless Shin glyphs appeared behind his back. With a whoosh, they swept towards a Gui. The undying Shin punishment was very troublesome, but it was just a little troublesome. Chief Elder was full of murderousness. He would show these people what a god-level expert was. The furiously growing Shin glyphs were like vines that immediately wrapped around a Gui. These dark green Shin glyphs were peerless in their strength. While the bone daggers in a Gui's hands could cut them off, they grew quickly. In a blink, a Gui was wrapped up by the Shin glyph that was like a furiously growing patch of grass. Wali's sword essence had reached Chief Elder's face. Chief Elder's expression changed slightly and he retreated. This sword energy that seemed to be covered in dust was made from dozens of layers of life and death energy. It was the first time Chief Elder had encountered such a strange sword essence. Between life and death, between intangibility and tangibility, layer after layer, there is a unique sword essence like this in the world. Chief Elder pointed with his fingers. A Shin glyphy suddenly appeared and split into two to reveal a thin opening that was black and bottomless. It was a crack into the endless void. Wali's sword essence disappeared into the endless void. Chief Elder relaxed slightly. Even if it was between life and death, between intangibility and tangibility, there would be only one fate for it after being sucked into the endless void. The feeling of stickiness once again appeared which made Chief Elder's body still. Wei Sheng's sword essence just barely brushed past him, and he had a cold sweat from the shock. Chief Elder's eyes flashed with cold light. The ground underneath Zhong Ru's feet split apart without any warning or sound. Boom! Large waves of burning red-hot lava erupted from the crack, and the lava swallowed Zhong Ru. The pillar of lava was more than 100 zhang tall, like an enormous dragon. The dragon fire then landed heavily and smashed into the lava below. The lava seemed to be alive. It grabbed Zhong Ru and pulled him down deeper. The crack on the ground fused back together. The sun, moon, and bloody sky above made Chief Elder extremely uncomfortable. He snorted coldly. He did not seem to move, but the rivers, lakes, and oceans of the Central Plains started to boil. Steam rose up and turned into mist that gathered in the sky. Black clouds covered the sky once again. The moonlight threads were cut off. The sun's fire burned at the cloud layer, but the cloud layer became thicker and thick until it completely separated the sun and moon from the land below. The world became dark again. The lightning snakes danced in the black clouds even more intensely than before. Chief Elder's gaze moved to Wei Sheng and he felt a wave of murderousness. So what if it was the god-killing blood sword? It was from tens of thousands of years ago. Did you still think it still is that era? Facing the blood sword essence, he suddenly reached out a hand. Hiss crack crack. In that moment, thousands of bolts of lightning came from the cloud layer and landed on Chief Elder's palm. There seemed to be a layer of silver liquid flowing on Chief Elder's palm that was so bright no one could look directly at it. Chief Elder's hand moved slightly. The silver fluid started to retreat from his arm towards his wrist and then from his sword to his finger. Thousands of bolts of lightning formed a round and scorchingly bright silver ball that appeared in front of Chief Elder's finger. Chief Elder flicked, and the silver ball, which gave off a terrifying presence, flew towards the incoming bloody sword essence. Chapter 844, Lin Qianpu. The silver ball immediately penetrated the sword essence. The seemingly powerful sword essence flow was as fragile as paper in front of this silver ball. The bloody flow collapsed. The silver ball drew out a silver streak in the air as it flew towards Wei Sheng. Wei Sheng's pale and eerie face showed a hint of fear. But then a cold and eerie smile appeared on his lips. The power of the god-killing blood sword came from the power in the blood of the ancient warriors, but the god-killing blood sword had not completely taken over Wei Sheng's mind. Because only Wei Sheng could truly express his understanding of sword essence. At this time, the god-killing blood sword returned control to Wei Sheng. Chief Elder found the difference. The eerie and vicious presence on Wei Sheng's face suddenly disappeared and was replaced by the determined and honest presence unique to Wei Sheng. Chief Elder immediately realized what had happened. Having gained control again, Wei Sheng did not seem to feel the piercing pain in his body. His eyes focused slightly, his wrist shook, and the blood sword in his hand suddenly rose slightly. He executed the simple stab that he had practiced millions of times, stab forward. Just like last time, the blood-colored sword essence exploded out. The ultimate power contained in the blood of those ancient warriors turned into tiny sword essences counted in the hundreds of thousands as they erupted from the sword. Unexpectedly, these millions of sword essences were filled with the smell of blood did not spread out but were gathering towards the tip of the sword. Looking from afar, it seemed that the blood-colored light that appeared on the sword was contracting and collapsing suddenly towards the sword tip. A rice-sized dot of light suddenly burned at the tip of the sword. Wei Sheng's eyes were as bright as stars as his wrist flicked lightly. That light made from millions of sword essences flew towards the silver ball and jumped off the tip of the sword. The sword essence dot of light did not move fast, and its flight path was slightly unstable. However, the silver ball seemed to be attracted to it and flew straight towards the sword essence. The rice-sized sword essence dot collided with the silver ball. Snap! The silver ball broke apart, a thread of lightning flashing and disappearing in the air without any of the terrifying presence it had before. The sword essence that had shattered the silver ball continued to fly towards Chief Elder. Chief Elder was slightly shocked. He looked again at Wei Sheng. He hadn't expected that the god-killing blood sword was even stronger in Wei Sheng's hands than in the hands of the god-killing blood sword. It was a pity such an outstanding youth was not from Tianhuan. Chief Elder felt slight pity. The more he fought with these people, the more he felt just how outstanding they were. Wei Sheng was powerful, but this was not enough to defeat him. Chief Elder flicked a finger and a crack to the endless voice appeared in front of the dot of light. Even the strongest sword essence was meaningless against the vast, endless void. Just as the dot of light was about to be swallowed by the crack into the endless void, the blood swords in Wei Sheng's eyes suddenly lit up. The sword in his hand trembled and he shouted, "Explode!" The dot of light suddenly gave off blinding rays of light. The sword essence that had been compressed to its limits exploded in the crack to the endless void in a spectacular show. Boom! All of the central planes suddenly shook violently. Chief Elder's expression changed drastically for the first time. With a grunt, he disappeared from his position. He was wounded. There was a certain connection between his mind and the Shun glyphs he used. The endless void crack at the center of the Shun glyph had exploded, and the great blow had affected his body. His mind was injured. This person was crazy. Attacking a crack to the endless void, this person dared to attack a crack to the endless void. No one would have dared to do this. This was not any different than committing suicide. The endless void crack was extremely unstable to start with. It was very likely to pull all of the central planes in the endless void after being attacked like this. Everyone would die. Suddenly, Chief Elder realized, these people were going to die anyways. Damn it. Chief Elder's expression changed again. He had been mistaken. How could he have forgotten this? If these people were trapped here, if they attacked the cracks to the endless void, then he wouldn't be able to escape. A dark black crack suddenly floated in the air. A crack to the endless void. Lin Qian looked in shock at the great battle occurring in the distance with waves in his heart. The strength of God level was deeply imprinted into his mind. This battle far surpassed his understanding, no matter if it was Chief Elder that controlled all things in the world, or Wei Sheng and the others. All of the powers they showed were from the legends of the ancient warriors. Originally, he had wanted to watch and see if he could take advantage of the situation. However, when the crack to the endless void was attacked, he realized there wasn't much time left. He had been gripping the immemorial Shun sword all this time. Everything in the surroundings were clearly reflected in his mind. He could clearly feel that after Wei Sheng attacked the crack to the endless void, all of the central planes were affected. Before, it had been a few hours to the collapse. Now that time was drastically shorted. With his strength, he could not accurately calculate when this Jie would collapse. The feeling of increasing danger told him that there wasn't much time left. Looking at everyone around him, Lin Qian felt terrible and didn't know how to speak. There hadn't been any problems with their plan. Ever since they had received the news about Mo Cloud Si and Tianhuan, Kunlun had done a great deal of work, even sending Mu Xian to fight Mu Xi, creating a great ruckus so that Tianhuan and Mo Cloud Si would not worry as they fought each other. Lin Qian had personally led this team and had a few different backup plans, including one where they attacked Zhong de Mo Cloud Si, or the chief elder of Tianhuan. All of them could be targets depending on how the situation developed. Possessing the immemorial sword, Lin Qian had the ability to kill in a single blow. But how could he have imagined that the chief elder of Tianhuan would step into god level? When the other decided to close off and destroy this Jia, Lin Qian knew that chief elder had definitely noticed them. This time, the children of Kunlun that came with him would not be able to escape. Even he needed to rely on the power of the immemorial sword to break through the void and return to Kunlun. He did not have the ability to take others with him. Eldest Xixiang, quick go, a Kunlun disciple urged in a trembling voice. This battle was a great blow to them. They had detected the change to some degree. How could the ones that became children of Kunlun be stupid? Their guesses were extremely close to the truth. Yes, eldest Xixiang. Go quickly. Compared to the Kunlun disciples, this slightly older disciple urged as well. If eldest Xixiang can return, then Kunlun has won. These words immediately lit up their emotions. Their pale faces flashed with a strange excitement. Ha! Tianhuan will not have chief elder, Mo Cloud Si's experts will all be dead, only Kunlun will be left. Ha! Such a great bargain. Eldest Xixiang, you have to conquer the world. Lin Qian's eyes filled with tears. He bit his lips and said slowly, Kunlun will not forget any of you. Time became even tighter, the feeling of danger increasing. Lin Qian did not hesitate any longer. He wiped the tears and held the immemorial Shun sword across his body. Lin Qian's expression was devout as he chanted, "Protect our Kunlun." The immemorial Shun sword suddenly gave off astounding light that wrapped around Lin Qian. Inside the light, a part of Lin Qian's Shun power suddenly started to burn. Enormous pain spread through his body. Lin Qian's body did not move a hair. So this was burning Shun power. He hadn't thought that he would need to burn Shun power to escape this place. Lin Qian looked deeply at Tianhuan's chief elder in the sky. Accumulating enough Shun power to burn. That was the crux of becoming a god. Lin Qian noted this. This was the greatest gain this time. He would definitely become god level. Lin Qian gripped the sword hilt tightly. The burning Shun power was sucked dry by the immemorial Shun sword in his hand. The light wrapped around him suddenly exploded. A vast sword essence broke through the sky. Lin Qian's body disappeared from his spot. A Kunlun child stood up and shouted, "We're going to die anyways. Brothers, let's fight to the death. Mo Cloud Si's people are going to die with us. We cannot let that old man from Tianhuan run away. All in. Do it." All of the Kunlun children had a look of fanaticism on their faces. They seemed to see the scene of Kunlun conquering the world. They started to furiously burn Shun power. He had to leave as fast as possible. Chief Elder knew if this continued, he could not leave. Lin Qian's departure cleared his mind. Escaping this place was the most important thing. Otherwise, even if Lin Qian was wounded but could return alive, they won. Lin Qian only needed to spend a few years to recover from his wounds, and then Tianhuan would be finished. Without him, Tianhuan could not stop Lin Qian. Chief Elder ignored those children of Kunlun and smirked inside. Those children of Kunlun were too weak. They didn't know that they didn't even qualify to burn their Shun power. Idiots. As expected, the first Kunlun disciple that burned their Shun power turned to ash before they could make any sound. The rest of the disciples were unable to stop. Flames consumed all of them. Why had Chief Elder never thought that burning was the crux to entering god level? Because in the records that had remained from the ancient era, burning was the move used to die with your opponent. Those that burned Shun power would die. This was easy to understand. But only after entering God level did Chief Elder truly understand. There were 3 outcomes to burning Shen power. Those with weak Shen power would be turned to ash on the spot. If their Shen power reached a certain level, burning would increase their power temporarily, but then they would die in the end. And only when their Shen power reached a certain level would burning Shen power allow them to break through. They could use the power of the breakthrough to stabilize and become God level. There were only a rare few that had become God level. The important points had disappeared into history. Dodging Zhou Mo, Wei Sheng, and Wali's attacks, Chief Elder searched for a chance to escape. His eyes glanced at the endless void crack. Zhou Mo's mind was a blur. He was relying on his instincts for the great majority of his attacks. But as he attacked without any regard for the consequences, a small part of the power inside his body was used up and he finally recovered a thread of clarity. The presence of the immemorial Shen sword just now caused him to shudder and his mind immediately became much clearer. Lin Qian. This name caused his eyes to turn red. Clear-minded, Zhou Mo reacted quickly and realized Lin Qian's intentions. He hadn't thought that this was the mantis hunting the cicada, while the oriole was waiting behind. The one that benefited in the end was Lin Qian. But at this time, he quickly moved his gaze back to the battle. Lin Qian had already escaped. If Chief Elder escaped as well, Mo Cloud C would be finished. This thought caused Zhou Mo to glare at Chief Elder. No matter what, Chief Elder could not be allowed to leave this place alive. Since they would die anyways, they had to fight for a chance for Mo Cloud C. Having recovered clarity of mind, Zhou Mo's danger level immediately rose. Eldest Shi Xiang, stop him, do not let him escape through the crack. Zhou Mo exposed Chief Elder's intentions and he moved forward before he finished speaking. The golden flames rushed to gather at his right fist. Zhou Mo's face was full of viciousness and savagery. Come, taste yes new move. Chapter 845, Surging Power of Everyone Here. The one that was the greatest threat to Chief Elder was Wei Sheng and not the god-killing blood sword. The difference in cultivation meant that the great power of the god-killing blood sword could not be fully expressed. Even then, only Wei Sheng could transform the great and savage power of the god-killing blood sword into powerful killing moves. The god-killing blood sword also recognized this. While it was unwilling, the circumstances of the battle meant that it had to relinquish control to Wei Sheng. Wei Sheng's skill in the sword was completely brought out. Having just comprehended how to compress sword essence, he repeatedly released these extremely compressed sword essences. Chief Elder was very wary of them. Unprecedented power flooded into Wei Sheng's body from the god-killing blood sword and rampaged through his body. Buoyed by this surging power, he stood at an unprecedented level. His vision immediately broadened. Countless ideas of the sword path erupted out of his mind. The sword essence in his hand constantly changed, and the sword essence became even harder to predict. An explosion due to his accumulated knowledge. His sword cultivation route had never been smooth. He had experienced numerous hardships, countless obstacles, and always persisted. No one is like him. Even with such strength, he still persisted daily in the basic sword training. After continuing for so many years, his fundamentals were astoundingly rooted, and he had accumulated great knowledge and skill. This was truly an explosion. Wei Sheng's understanding of void sword essence broke through a bottleneck and reached an unprecedented height. The pressure on Chief Elder suddenly increased. The void presence in Wei Sheng's sword essence became fainter and fainter, the sword energy slimmer, and was now as thin as a strand of hair. Chief Elder didn't dare to let these hair-thin sword energies near him. Even he would be cut apart by these sword energies if they touched him. Each slender sword energy was a tiny crack of the endless void. Damn it! Chief Elder felt even more frantic. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a wisp of fire, and his heart jumped. For Zhou Mo, the Sun Shen methodology had always been very cryptic. It was an inheritance from an ancient time, after all. The speech and writing from that time had been completely different from now. Many times, Zhou Mo needed to focus to study and understand. His cultivation path could not be said to be difficult, But Mo always felt that there was a barrier, and he could not easily proceed. Until now. There was peerless power surging in his body. All of the power in the Sun Crystal Seed was unleashed inside his body. Even in the history of the Sun Tribe, no one had dared to do a similar thing. There had never been such great power. All the places that had been difficult in the past disappeared completely now. The entire Shen methodology flowed through his mind and matched him unusually well, as though it had been activated now after hiding in his body all this time. The Sun Shen methodology was not as complex as Mo originally imagined. When he understood and looked back, he found that the Sun Shen methodology was actually very simple. The ancient warriors emphasized presence as the most important during battle. They were the ultimate power for their tribe. When tribes fought, they were usually fighting at the front lines, just like the Mo of the present. This was why they admired simplicity the most. Things that were too complex might be beautiful and exquisite, but they definitely were of little help for presence. The Sun Shen methodology was modeled after the sun, and the Sun Crystal Seed was a sun. Its power was of the same source as the Sun Shen power, and the laws involved were the same. While he could not control everything in the world like Chief Elder, but there was no obstacle any longer to understand many things that had been hard to understand. It could be said that only now did he completely absorb the entire Sun Shen methodology, how to channel Shen power, and much more. Those furious raging power became Mo's best teachers and taught him how to produce and channel the power of the sun. The great problems that countless Sun Tribe warriors had spent their minds and energy on studying were clearly being displayed inside Mo's body. Mo even found several places where the Sun Shen methodology was wrong. There never been anyone like him who was able to observe how the burning flows inside the sun moved in such detail. The burning flows inside the Sun Crystal Seed had manifested after being accumulated through millions of years. It was much more refined compared to Mo's Sun Shen power. It was a pity. He didn't have much time left. If he could survive, maybe he could push the Sun Shen methodology to a higher level. At such a time, he was able to have such absurd thoughts in his mind. Mo grinned in self-mockery. In his field of view, Chief Elder's unpredictable figure grew closer. Mo's pupils were like two balls of burning flame. Since this was the case, then let the Sun Shen methodology shine its brightest light in his hands. Flames continued to flow and gather at his right fist. At this time, the Mo matrix seal on his right hand was destroyed by the burning flows of the Sun Crystal Seed. The skin of his right fist was almost transparent. The deep red burning flows moved underneath slowly like blood. As the flames continued to gather, the burning sun flows in his right fist started to become more active. Chief Elder's figure continued to grow closer. The fire burning in Mo's chest became even stronger. As though they felt his fighting spirit, the burning flows inside his body circulated faster. The strong burning brought along great pain, and caused Mo's face to twist. At this time, he saw Chief Elder suddenly jump, and the Shen glyph under his feet lit up at the same time. "You want to run?" Mo's face was unspeakably vicious. The flames on his right fist were compressed to the limit, burning a blinding white. The burning flows in his right fist became more active than they ever had been. His right fist trembled uncontrollably as a feeling of numbness spread. A blurry figure flashed nearby. "Idiot!" Mo, who was almost pushed to the point of crumbling by the burning flows, had a peerlessly savage expression on his twisted face. "Kill!" A silent howl exploded in his mind. Using all of his power, he threw his right fist in the direction of Chief Elder. Boom! The surging Sun Shen flames erupted from Mo's right fist without any warning. The flames were so strong they exploded like a volcano. The area they covered was unexpectedly large. Chief Elder, who had not stabilized himself, was consumed by the Sun Shen fire. When an enormous pillar of Shen fire 5 li in diameter appeared in the sky, the entire sky was illuminated. The thick clouds in the sky boiled and a large portion disappeared. Within the pillar of fire, countless 3-legged golden crows that manifested from Shen power flapped their wings. Golden arcs of flame formed and extinguished in the pillar of fire. Everyone was stunned by the astounding scene. In front of the enormous pillar of flame, Zhuo seemed so minuscule. Huh? Zhuo's panting was interspersed with broken laughter as he floated in the air. His right fist was burnt black, his right arm having completely lost feeling. His terrifying pillar of fire was not formed from his Shun power but by igniting the burning sun flows inside his fist. He had just used an extremely tiny amount of the burning sun flows, but he had paid a great price. His Shen power would not be able to injure the chief elder, but the burning sun flows could. He didn't have much Shen power, but he had a great amount of burning sun flows in his body. There was a great difference in their cultivation, but so what? Power could not fill the gap in cultivation, but he had enough power to break the gap. Coleman. Zhuo's eyes were red. He could not feel if it was his spirit that was burning or if his body was actually burning. That was not important now. Chief Elder's figure appeared in view. He was extremely disheveled, all of his hair burned away. He hadn't expected that Zhuo's punch had such great range. When he had been consumed by the pillar of fire, he used Shun glyphs to protect himself. Yet the pillar of fire formed by igniting the burning sun flows was too great. What depressed him even more was that there had been a bunch of three-legged golden crows inside the pillar of fire formed from Zhuo's Shun power. These three-legged golden crows furiously charged at him so that he could not use any methods except Shun glyphs to resist the sun Shun fire. That was sun Shun fire. The life of a sun could be counted in the billions of years. Even an infant sun had lived through millions of years. The power of the sun Shun fire it created could be imagined. The surging sun Shun fire had caught the chief elder off guard and he had been injured. What had injured the chief elder was not the sun Shun fire's power but its terrifying volume. Chief elder seemed to be hit by a raging river. He was disheveled because he had been caught off guard. If he was prepared, he would definitely be able to stop the same move. In his eyes, Zhuo could not express its true power. The move appeared astounding, but its true power was not as great as imagined. However, being pushed to such a step by a person not in God level. Chief Elder's gaze when he looked at Zhuo suddenly became dark and murderous. He glanced at the endless void crack that had been attacked by Wei Xing but hadn't disappeared. This crack of the endless void that he could pass through was surrounded by tiny cracks of void. These tiny cracks were Wei Xing's void sword essence. These void sword energies sealed the crack. Damn it. Chief Elder's gaze landed back on Zhuo. This guy's body was strange. Chief Elder managed to calm his mind. He knew that if he could not take care of these people, he would not have a chance to break the seal and flee into the endless void. If he received even the slightest disruption when he went into the endless void, even a god level would die. When he made the decision, Chief Elder calmed down. The central plains were rapidly collapsing, but there wasn't any panic on his face. There was enough time. Suddenly, the Shun glyph that had wrapped around a Gue gave off purple flames. The Shun glyph was burned away like dry grass and revealed a Gui's body. Almost at the same time, a figure suddenly burrowed out of the ground and shot into the sky. It was Zhong Ru, who had been dragged underground by the lava. This group was really troublesome. Chief Elder sighed in astonishment. Just now, Zhuo and Wei Xing had pressed him hard enough that he had not attention to pay to these two people. This allowed the two to break free of their restraints. The youths all had different powers, but they had some similar traits such as being hardy. Chief Elder's gaze became calm and serene again. Since this was the case, then head take care of them together. It'll let you see what the uncrossable chasm between a true god level and you is. Chief Elder slowly closed his eyes and spread his arms. Chapter 846, Glyph C. A Shin glyph appeared beside the Chief Elder, then another one, a third, a fourth. All kinds of glyphs grew in the air and spread outwards. In a few moments, there were countless glyphs floating in the end, packed in and endless. Some were Shin glyphs, some were seal scripts. They were of different colors and flashed with different lights. Chief Elder's expression was solemn. His spread arms seemed to be embracing the world. This was like a galaxy, all kinds of stars vast and endless. The Shen glyphs were like those enormous and bright stars, the seal scripts like those small and dim stars. Each glyph spun slowly and released a force field that belonged to themselves. A sea of glyphs. A hint of shock flashed through Zhuomo's eyes, but then he recovered. He had to admit that in the field of Shen glyphs and seal scripts, Chief Elder was the best at present. Even around him, there were several glyphs that he did not recognize. This glyph sea contained billions of glyphs. Was this god level? A daze entered Zhuomo's eyes. Seal scripts and Shen glyphs. This was also the field he was skilled in, but he was lacking in comparison to Chief Elder. This was the world of Shen glyphs. A Shen glyph grandmaster. Yet there was no time for Zhuomo to sigh in astonishment. He quickly found the danger of this world of Shen glyphs. Nearby, a Shen glyph suddenly lit up. 7 seal scripts were attracted to it and released light at the same time. Suddenly, an arrow of ice shot out of a light blue seal script. Zhuomo did not change expression. When the ice arrow reached him, it was turned to steam by the sun Shen fire that surrounded Zhuomo. Yet this ice arrow seemed to awaken the other seal scripts and Shen glyphs. Ice arrows, waves of wind, lightning, flowing fire. They shot at Zhuomo from all directions, hissing and cracking. Sparks flew around Zhuomo. The domineering and powerful sun Shen fire dealt easily with these normal attacks. But Zhuomo did not have a happy expression. He actually felt a foreboding sense of unease. The entire glyph sea started to spun. All of the Shen glyphs and seal scripts seemed to be awakened. All of the seal scripts around Zhuomo started to attack. Each seal script had a different attack. The lights came in a storm and were so rapid they almost obscured Zhuomo's vision. Zhuomo immediately felt a slight pressure. The power of the seal scripts was limited and they could not break through Zhuomo's Shen fire. However, there were too many of them and too many different kinds of powers. The pressure when tens of thousands of completely different powers attacked together could be imagined. The flames around Zhuomo exploded. The burning sun flows inside his body seemed to be angered by the rain of attacks. The sun Shen fire became even more ferocious. At this time, Zhuomo was a ball of fire. The lights released by the seal scripts were like moths flying towards a flame. Once they came close, they would turn into sparks and disappear. Zhuomo did not dare to relax. Right now, the seal scripts were the ones attacking, and the Shen glyphs had not moved. Shen glyphs were of a higher level than seal scripts and more powerful. As expected by Zhuomo, a Shen glyph suddenly lit up with blue light. A blue figure like that of a female slowly rose from the Shen glyph. The blue female seemed like a ball of flowing water. She held a deep blue bottle in her hand. When it appeared, Zhuomo had a strong feeling of danger. She held the blue bottle high up in her hand. The mouth of the bottle was turned to face Zhuomo's splash. A flow of water poured out of the bottle and landed by her feet, turning into a raging river that swept toward Zhuomo. The roar of the river covered all other sounds. Zhuomo stared closely at the river in front of him. A strong feeling of danger rose. Using water to subdue fire? Zhuomo was not surprised. Water subduing fire was a basic law. The sun Shen fire was domineering, but it was not invincible. If there was Shen fire, there would be Shen water. With a Shen fire like the sun Shen fire that was the most domineering and masculine, there was naturally the darkest and gentlest Shen water. Shen water. The river in front of him was made completely of Shen water. Zhuomo was shocked. He had been shocked when Chief Elder had managed to summon the Void Sky Li fire. He hadn't thought the other was able to summon Shen water with a wave of his hand. His guess was right. Chief Elder had summoned a Shen water. The Void Spring Shen water which came from the Endless Void. There were many void springs in the Endless Void and the Void Spring Shen water came from that. Chief Elder desperately wanted to end the battle. He used the power of the Shen glyphs to find a void spring and summon the Void Spring Shen water. Was this god level? The burning sun flows seemed to detect the danger the river posed. They became more active. The burning sun flow that speed up in its circulation set off golden arcs of flame. The golden arcs of flame appeared for only short moments, flashing and then disappearing. But the arcs formed and extinguished each other. With the destruction of each arc, there would be a gold spark that landed in Zhuomo's body. However, Zhuomo had no time to study what these golden sparks were. As the burning flow became active again, Zhuomo seemed to feel as though his mind fell back into a great sea of fire. His consciousness started to blur again. However, having gained some experience, Zhuomo took a deep breath. He faced the charging Shen water and threw a punch just like previously. Without needing his consciousness effort, a small burning flow started to burn. Boom! A terrifying pillar of fire erupted out of Zhuomo's burnt right hand. The pillar of fire and the flow of water collide heavily in the air. The moment that the Shen water and Shen fire came into contact, light appeared. Zhuomo's vision was blinded and he could not see a thing. Boom boom boom. The enormous sounds of the explosion deafened Zhuomo's ears. A faint rings of light quickly spread from where the two had collided. Everywhere the circle of light passed, the seal scripts immediately shattered. Zhuomo was swept by the ring of light. It was like being hammered. The flames around him suddenly lit up. Taking advantage of the moment of clarity, Zhuomo gritted his teeth and threw another punch. Boom! Another pillar of fire. The Shen fire immediately gained the upper hand. The void spring Shen water continued to retreat as the Shen fire moved forward. The line of fire was pressing close to the feet of the woman holding the bottle. The void spring Shen water was a level below the sun Shen fire. The void spring had not been large and there wasn't much Shen water inside. Zhuomo had a complete sun crystal seed that contained a great deal more Shen fire. At this time, nearby, another Shen glyph suddenly lit up. This was a white Shen glyph. The light it gave off was also white. When the Shen glyph lit up, it immediately attracted the surrounding seal scripts to it. In a blink, it became several times bigger. A white dragon of ice flew out of the Shen glyph, stretched its body and leapt at the Shen fire. When the ice dragon appeared, the temperature of the surrounding air dropped dramatically. It was the first time Zhuomo saw such a condensed and detailed dragon. This snowy white dragon had an elegant body, its scales like crystal that reflected the light beautifully. Ice Shen glyph. The cold air spun as the ice dragon coiled and silently spread to every corner. The presence of the sun Shen fire suddenly stilled. The void spring Shen water took the chance to push the Shen fire back in Zhuomo's direction. The icy cold energy caused Zhuomo's mind to clear up greatly. Such powerful Shen glyph. Zhuomo had never seen such a strong cold energy. If he didn't have the burning heat of the sun inside him, he definitely would not last long with just his own Shen power. But in the next moment, Zhuomo's expression changed slightly. The cold energy did not cause the burning flow in his body to retreat, it actually enraged the burning flows. They became more active. Hiss hiss hiss. The golden arcs of flame became more frequent and more golden sparks fell in Zhuomo's body. Zhuomo managed to detect the pattern. If the burning flow became active, his consciousness would be pulled into the sea of fire and start to blur. If this occurred, the best way was to channel the burning flow out. The amount of burning sun flow they had used was a drop in a sea. The amount of sun Shen fire contained in one drop of the burning sun flow was astounding. Without a word, Zhuomo gritted his teeth. Another punch. A blinding pillar of light headed for the ice dragon. The ice dragon was unusually alert. Its body shifted and it easily avoided Zhuomo's attack. It roamed around Zhuomo. With every shift of its body, it would cause a ripple of cold energy. As the ripples of energy came, the temperature continued to fall. Bone-chilling coldness caused the sun Shen fire to quickly wither. Each complete Shen glyph had great abilities. Chief Elder's skill in Shen glyphs was peerless. After stepping into God level, he managed to complete many of his originally incomplete Shen glyphs. The content that he had found cryptic and hard to understand before were now restored with just a thought. This ice breath Shen dragon glyph was one of those. He had just obtained a small part of it and used it to study. After entering God level, the mysteries of this Shen glyph was completely exposed to him. From that small part, he was able to reconstruct an entire Shen glyph. If he could harvest God-level cold energy and merge it into this Shen glyph to summon the true Ice Breath Shen dragon, the power would be much greater than the dragon now. When the waves of cold energy touched the flames around Zhuemo, they snapped and popped, creating sparks. It appeared as though fireworks were being set off around Zhuemo, the sparks never ceasing. Seeing the pillar of fire was not effective against the ice dragon, Zhuemo decided to attack the Shen water first. Boom boom boom. After several pillars of fire hit the Shen water was unable to withstand it and retreated. The ice dragon seemed to understand. It suddenly appeared next to Zhuemo and opened its mouth to blow a cold breath on Zhuemo. This cold breath was much stronger than the cold energy previously released. Covered in the flames, Zhuemo shook from the cold. This cold energy seemed to be able to pass through the sun Shen fire and hit his body. The Shen fire immediately weakened. A dense layer of frost appeared on Zhuemo's body. The ice frost was eerie. It did not melt within the flames. So cold. Zhuemo's brain almost froze. A strange and peerless cold continued to spread through his body. The sun Shen fire seemed to be ineffective against the coldness. Boom boom boom. The burning sun flow became enraged. They moved at an unprecedented speed, the arcs of flame almost turning Zhuemo's body into gold. Yet the cold energy was unusually hard. No matter how the sun Shen fire burned, it did not change at all. Zhuemo was trapped between ice and fire. The surface of his body was bone-chillingly cold, the inside of his body burning like lava. The ice dragon took the chance to blow out more cold breath. With every blow, it would wither slightly and become smaller. After 12 breaths, the body of the ice dragon had halved. A thick layer of ice covered Zhuemo and his figure could not be seen. There was only a large piece of ice. Zhuemo was completely sealed by ice. The ice dragon showed a relieved expression. Its ice breath was peerless in its cold. 12 of its breaths could seal anything. Even after 10,000 years, it would not melt. Sleep forever in this piece of sighing ice. The ice dragon was about to turn and leave. The ice layer shattered. A hand reached out of the thick ice layer without warning and grabbed the ice dragon. Chapter 847, Each Person's Intentions. The hand breaking through the ice grabbed the ice dragon. The red burning sun flows hissed when they came into contact with the ice dragon. A ball of mist rose. The clear scales started to melt rapidly. The ice dragon struggled fiercely in Zhuemo's hand. Yet Zhuemo's fingers were a steel trap and did not budge at all. The ice dragon twisted furiously as it continued to spit out ice breaths at Zhuemo. The ice continued to grow thicker, but no matter how it struggled, it was unable to break free of his grip. The sun Shen fire in Zhuemo's hand became even hotter and more wild. The golden sun Shen fire covered the ice dragon. The ice dragon melted at a visible rate. With a wail, it turned into a ball of mist and disappeared into the air. The ice breath Shen dragon glyph turned into a handful of fragments and also dissipated. A pillar of fire flew out of Zhuemo's hand towards the Shen water glyph. The figure standing on top of the Shen water glyph had been fighting with the sun Shen fire. She had not expected the situation to change abruptly. The pillar of fire brutally crashed onto her body. With a great explosion, the Shen glyph shattered. The surrounding seal scripts seemed to be swept by a wave of air, clearing off a large area. The pressure on Zhuemo lessened. The Shen fire on his body grew. The ice turned into mist, sizzling and turning into vapor. The Shen ice was unique and should have been the one kind of Shen ice that could stop the great majority of Shen fires. However, the ice dragon and the sun Shen fire were not on the same level after all. The burning sun flows became even more active in Zhuemo's body and started to rampage again. The Shen ice could not last one blow in front of the rampaging sun Shen fire. But Zhuemo had pretended to be trapped by the ice to lure the ice dragon closer to deliver a killing blow. That ice dragon was truly too intelligent. When Zhuemo's consciousness had been floating in the sea of flame, he thought of this idea. After defeating 2 Shen glyphs, the burning sun flow seemed to be in an excited state as though it had defeated a great enemy. Consequently, Zhuemo's consciousness was pulled into the sea of flame again. Damn it. The extreme temperature caused Zhuemo's consciousness to blur again. The sea of glyphs turned and several Shun glyphs appeared. It was easy to find remains of Shun glyphs on the market. Many people would sell them. The price was high for the average person, but they really were not too expensive to a big sect like Tianhuan. If Chief Elder wasn't peerless in his study of Shun glyphs, the remnants of Shun glyphs would have only be collected and kept stored in a corner of Tianhuan. But at this time, these collected Shun glyphs all showed their power. The sun crystal seed was not a common object. Even in the vast, desolate, and empty endless void that was also in its own way rich in all kinds of things, the sun was forever one of the conquerors. It had a long lifespan, unrivaled light and heat. Accumulated and purified over millions of years, the power inside it was astounding, abundant, and pure. When a few more Shun glyphs flew close, the burning sun flows in Zuomo's body immediately reacted. With Zuomo as the center, the wave of fire spread in all directions. The burning and bright golden wave of flame caused all the seal scripts it passed through to burn to dust or light aflame. The Shun glyphs that had all caught fire released light to fight against the sun Shun fire. The domineering and bright sun Shun fire was full of destructive power. Chief Elder finally was sure what was inside Zuomo's body. A sun crystal seed. It definitely was the sun crystal seed. The legendary relic of the Sun tribe. His eyes were wide as he looked at Zuomo like he saw a ghost. Sun crystal seed. The relic of the Sun tribe that had dominated the ancient era. Even in the ancient era, it was one of the world's greatest treasures. The legends said that the sun crystal seed was made from a sealed sun. Was it really a sun? Chief Elder felt a chill. He should have thought of this a long time ago. Such endless sun Shun fire. Except for that legendary sun crystal seed, what other thing had such presence? Looking at Zuomo, who seemed to be made of fire, Chief Elder had an even stronger feeling of danger. When his gaze landed on the sun glyph that appeared on Zuomo's body, he sighed slightly. The sun glyph on Zuomo's body was not complete, meaning he could not express all the power of the sun crystal seed. There was still a chance. The sun crystal seed was powerful, but it was inanimate and it did have weaknesses. It was a pity that his Shun glyphs were all partially restored from remnants that he found in the Xiozhou world. These Shun glyphs were not the top tier. Maybe after this battle, he would go into the endless void to find those even more powerful Shun glyphs. But this was enough to deal with these people. Chief Elder was full of confidence. The blood sword trembled in Wei Xing's hand. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Several sword energies flashed and disappeared. Several hair-thin black energies appeared on the Shun glyph in front of him. The Shun glyph lit up with blinding light. Snap! The Shun glyph that just lit up shattered like fireworks. Wei Xing did not pause. He flashed and disappeared like a bloody shadow. He was extremely fast, the sword in his hand moving casually. His sword essence surged, and then an area of several dozen zhang would be enclosed within and the seal scripts inside would shatter. The god-killing blood sword gave a sharp wail. It was extremely excited. How many years had it been since it had fought such an enjoyable battle? It smelt the scent of blood, the scent of a god level. Suddenly, a strange howl came from nearby. The other came quickly. Before the howl ended, a blurry shadow seemed to appear in front of Wei Xing out of thin air. Wei Xing's expression was calm. The blood sword in his hand shook and stabbed. The shadow swung and then disappeared. So fast. Wei Xing's brow furrowed slightly, his body turning and his right leg following along to take half a step forward. The blood sword swung at the place he had just been. A burning light formed at the tip of his sword. Ding! A clear sound like metal grinding against metal caused Wei Xing's ears to tingle. That shadow also paused. Wei Xing finally saw what this was. It was an ape-like creature half a man's height. Its entire body was covered in a layer of black smoke, its limbs extremely long. At its fingertips were two bloody curved bone daggers that looked like sickles. Little Double Sickle Ghost. The Little Double Sickle Ghost were hunters that lived in the endless void. They were wary and vicious and easily moved through the endless void. Wei Xing did not hesitate. The sword essence shot towards the other. Yet what occurred astounded him. The little double-sickle ghost wailed and sucked that hair-thin void sword essence that could cut everything into its stomach. What Wei Xing did not know was that the little double-sickle ghost was born knowing how to use the endless void. Using void cracks to cut, slice, and counter it was something it was familiar with. Wei Xing's expression did not change as sword essence erupted. The little double-sickle ghost had an expression of mockery. It opened its mouth and sucked. The sword essence was sucked into its mouth. Wei Xing's expression was calm as he shook the blood sword. Numerous sword essences sprouted out. The mockery on the face of the little double-sickle ghost grew even greater. Just like previously, it opened its mouth and the sword essences flew towards its mouth. Dealing with void cracks was as simple as eating. Then its expression froze on its face. A dot of light lit up in its stomach. Suddenly, a rice-sized dot of light exploded in its stomach. The peerlessly sharp sword essence exploded. The stomach of the little double-sickle ghost was cut up. The ghost wailed before it turned into mist and dissipated in the air. Wei Xing had detected its weakness after observing him a long time ago. When he found the little double-sickle ghost could consume cracks of the endless void, he first used the void sword essence to lure it into consuming more and then mixed in a compressed sword essence among the flood of void sword essences. The little double-sickle ghost immediately fell for it. Wei Xing didn't look at the little double-sickle ghost's fading body. His figure flashed like lightning as he traveled through the seal scripts and shun glyphs in search of the chief elder. He knew that they would win only if they found and defeated the chief elder. Otherwise, the endless glyph sea could exhaust them and lead to their deaths. If Chief Elder dragged it on until the central plains collapsed, everyone would die together. That was also a solution. But Wei Xing still had a thread of hope. If they could kill Chief Elder soon enough, maybe they could fight for a chance for Shidi to escape. Unlike Sua Mo, who was fighting in the Sea of Flames, everyone else was clear-minded. Mo Cloud Sea had a unique way to communicate between them. At this time, everyone was stronger than usual. Even in the Sea of Glyphs, Wei Xing was still able to communicate his thoughts to everyone else. Other than Ague, everyone else immediately responded. Wei Xing had no attention to spare as he charged into the center of the Glyph Sea. He was not skilled in forming plans. He was only skilled in one thing, fighting. Wei Xing passed through the glyphs like lightning. After defeating a few dozen Shin glyphs that blocked his path, Wei Xing finally saw Chief Elder. At the same time, 3 figures entered his view. Zhongru, Senlian, and Wali. He saw a flash of purple light out of the corner of his eyes. Ague! Everyone had arrived. Chief Elder looked calmly at the 5 people that had charged over. Compared to just now, the 5 had even stronger presences. Chief Elder's mouth couldn't help but curve. He could feel that other than Wei Xing, everyone else had greatly expended their power. Burning Shun power could increase their strength, but it would wring out every thread of potential. Those that burned Shun power would feel that they were more powerful than they ever had been. This feeling of power would numb them so that they would not be sparing with their Shun power. Also, burning Shun power was for when their lives were on the line, who would hold back. Of the 5, 3 were at the end of their ropes. Wei Xing still had most of his abilities, and Ague the majority of her power. The Shun glyphs in the Glyph Sea were made from the remnants of Shun glyphs he collected. The great majority were not strong. However, even the weakest Shun glyph was still a Shun glyph. They definitely had expended a great portion of Shun power to reach him. There were 6 Shun glyphs floating around him. These 6 Shun glyphs were the strongest of the Shun glyphs he had collected and were his ultimate move. Wei Xing and the others did not know that Chief Elder had been preparing these 6 Shun glyphs for escaping the Jiez collapse. The 6 Shun glyphs would protect the Chief Elder when the central plains crumbled. While he could escape with his life, it was not possible to travel through the completely undamaged. He would likely have to recover for 10 years. So until he had to, Chief Elder did not want to use these glyphs. Wei Xing and the others' intentions of finishing the battle quickly was also what he wanted. Confident that the 5 people could not defeat him, Chief Elder raised his head and glanced at the ball of fire in the distant part of the Glyph Sea. If there were any uncertain factors, only that person, Chapter 848, Pu and Wei Wei Xing was like an unsheathed sword. In Mo Cloud C, if people were said to be both in fear and awe of Lil Miss, then everyone was full of the utmost respect for Teacher Wei. Teacher Wei never got angry, he would only smile gently, and then patiently demonstrate again and again to point out the differences. Wei Xing had an indescribable presence. People would unconsciously believe every word he said. No one would suspect he would not be able to do something. Almost no one had seen Teacher Wei angry. Wei Xing was as vast and heavy as a mountain. He was the idol of all the sword xiu in Mo Cloud C. When Teacher Wei made a decision, he would give up all restraint. At this time, his edges were all displayed. He was like a sword that could not be stopped. People would not doubt that he could cut open the sky. The 6 Shin glyphs revolved around Chief Elder, and Wei Xing immediately knew the other's intentions. His heart was calm, even while the furious power of the blood sword in his hand battered at his mind. The god-killing blood sword was like a beast that just tasted blood. It became frantic and tried to break free of all restraints. Yet Wei Xing's mind did not have any weakness. The blood sword-shaped pupils calmly gazed at Chief Elder. Wei Xing's calm caused Chief Elder to feel a thread of trepidation. Wei Xing did not recognize the 6 Shin glyphs, but he knew that something that Chief Elder who had summoned such a vast sea of glyphs was keeping back as a killing move. It definitely was not normal. Without any hesitation, he swung his sword, releasing sword essence like usual. The void sword essence was like hair blown into disarray by the wind, floating towards Chief Elder. Suddenly, a black Shin glyph among the 6 lit up. Then a black whirlpool appeared in the center of the Shin glyph. The void sword essence was sucked into the black whirlpool. That familiar feeling. Wei Xing narrowed his eyes. The center of the whirlpool was the endless void. No wonder he felt it was so familiar. Wei Xing was right. Chief Elder's Shin glyph was called the Endless Whirlpool. Its greatest ability was to consume everything. While he knew the ability of the whirlpool, Wei Xing did not have a good solution. His void sword essence was powerful, but the two were from the same source. He could not defeat the whirlpool. Also, the smaller gray spinning whirlpools in the larger whirlpool were clearly not so simple. Wei Xing was not shocked. He raised the blood sword in his hand. His face suddenly turned pale. Threads of blood appeared on the sword. The sword moved as though it was alive. An indescribable pressure immediately pressed on the battlefield. Wei Xing did not seem to see. His sword flickered and a drop of blood was thrown off the tip of the sword. It slowly flew towards the whirlpool. The blood bead contained an indescribable pressure. The speed of the black whirlpool was affected and its revolutions slowed. Chief Elder's expression became grave as he stared closely at the vat of blood. The blood bead flew to the center of the whirlpool and suddenly exploded. A spray of bloody mist landed on the whirlpool. The whirlpool was dyed with an imperceptible tinge of blood. The thin blood color did not seem to affect the whirlpool, but Wei Xing perceptively felt that the power of the whirlpool was slightly weaker than before. But before Wei Xing could celebrate, the color was quickly dragged into the gray spinning scripts. The whirlpool recovered. Those gray whirlpools were as strange as expected. Seeing this, a tinge of an imperceptible smile appeared on Chief Elder's mouth. He turned his gaze to another direction. The chains around Agui became even more tangible and tighter. They were tightly embedded into the bone armor. The purple flames burned. Her face was pale, and her eyes flashed with bright purple flame. The undying ghost had slightly changed. The chains that had bit into the bone armor started to gradually merge into one with the bone armor. The bone armor that looked like gray crystal had a few marks of crisscrossing flames. Agui's purple flames on the armor gradually receded, but the bone dagger in Agui's hands were still covered in a layer of purple. Agui's body suddenly disappeared. Almost at the same time, a blue Shun glyph lit up. A ray of blue light came from the Shun glyph and covered Agui. A thread of blue smoke came out of Agui's undying ghost. A faint layer of gray mist floated out of the surface of the undying ghost. This seemingly thin layer actually stopped the blue light. Chief Edler was astounded. Such thick and pure energy. It was the first time he closely examined a Gui's bone armor. When he looked, he jumped in fright. Shin device raiment. It was a Shin device raiment. The bone armor seemed to have been soaked in Yin energy for a long time to the point it didn't have any impurity. It seemed as clear as gray crystal. However, how many years would it take to gain such purity and clarity? Forgers always pursued the clearest and purest materials. The purer the material, the higher the grade it was. This bone armor was so high in grade, so pure, that Chief Elder had never seen something like it before. Even at a level like Chief Elder, he couldn't help but feel a hint of greed at seeing such quality. But then he smiled self-mockingly. It was not good to divide one's attention when fighting. He refocused and urged the blue Shun glyph further. The blue ray of light started to spin slowly. As the ray of blue light spun, the power contained in the ray of light increased greatly. A Gui's charge slowed to a halt. The blue ray of light seemed to contain a great force. The faint layer of gray mist on her armor quickly disappeared. A Gui suddenly released the 2 bone daggers in her hands. Chief Elder now found that there was an exquisite chain connecting the hilts of the 2 daggers. The bone daggers with their purple flames were like 2 bolts of lightning. They dragged the long chain as they flew towards the Shun glyph, releasing the blue ray of light. Clink clink. The bone daggers passed through the ray of light and hit the Shun glyph. The chain was pulled straight and they looked like 2 long spears. 2 waves of purple flame quickly reached towards the Shun glyph from a Gui's hands along the chain. At the same time, pure Yin energy that was wrapped around the chains caused the flames to erupt in power. The 2 bone daggers suddenly turned into 2 claws that grabbed onto the Shun glyph. The ray of blue light seemed to be stimulated. It became extremely bright and the hissing from a Gui's armor was much stronger. The layer of gray mist on top of the bone armor was quickly disappearing. Chief Elder's gaze focused. He detected danger from a Gui's move. However, this grinding blue light was one of the strongest Shun glyphs he had. This blue ray of light did not look like much, but anything it shone on would be ground into dust by the power it contained. The grinding blue light was not complete when he obtained it, but he saw its strength. Due to this, he had spent a great deal of energy on it. After reaching God level, the increase in his cultivation allowed him to repair the grinding blue light immediately. However, the Shun glyph of the grinding blue light was extremely complex. He still needed time to complete it. But even so, the present grinding blue light's power could not be underestimated. The grinding blue light was also unique in that the longer one resisted, the stronger the blue light became. As expected, the grinding blue light became even brighter. The gray mist on a Gui became an extremely faint layer. A Gui's figure started to tremble like the chains in the blue light. Because of the great force, they were trembling. However, a Gui's figure did not waver. The chain in her hands grew longer. The 2 chains were like 2 nimble snakes that started to climb and coil around the Shun glyph. They passed through the crevices between the Shun glyph. The purple flame that was usually unstoppable seemed to have lost its power and couldn't do anything against the Shun glyph. A Gui seemed to be unaffected by this. She only had the chain climb and warp around the Shun glyph. Chief Elder looked in interest at a Gui's actions. He had a very limited understanding of the undying Shun punishment. This punishment that was called the cruelest of the ancient era had only left behind a few sparse lines. The records he had collected about this was pitifully few. Maybe he could take this chance to observe the undying Shun punishment. He might gain something. The undying Shun punishment and the Shun device raiment interested him. Chief Elder did not think about the other 3 people. The 3 had used up too much of their Shun power just now. He only needed to use 1 Shun glyph to restrain them. Up until now, his plan was successful. As he observed a Gui, he recalculated the time. The entire battle was in his control. Quickly, a smile appeared on his lips. No matter how he calculated, he had enough time. This eased his worries. At this time, he seemed to feel something. He raised his head, his expression shocked. He turned his face to look in another direction. In a far part of the glyph sea, in the direction of the ball of fire, a presence was furiously growing. The fire burned fiercely. The arcs of flame formed sparks of gold that permeated Zhuo body. In a daze, Zhuo did not notice that the sun Shen glyph in his body was slowly growing and forming. If Zhuo was clear-minded, he would be shocked to find the growth of the Shen glyph was not along his skin, but like a tree root that grew out many strands of gold and wrapped around Zhuo's entire body. As the sun Shen glyph grew, the burning flames seemed much dimmer. If one could see through Zhuo's body, they would see the root-like sun Shen glyph was drawing from the red burning sun flows to feed Zhuo's body, like a tree taking water from ground. The sun Shen glyph quickly became tinged with red and became brighter. Soon, the root-like sun Shen glyph became the same color as the burning sun flows. Zhuo's face showed an expression of pain. In Zhuo's sea of consciousness, Pu Yao floated in the air, the eerie black fire dancing in the air. "Are you prepared?" His voice was as sharp as a knife, so cold there was no emotion. "Yes." A muffled voice came from the armor below. Wei was completely dressed, the armor covered in marks of age and battle. He held a sword and stood next to the black steel, his figure straight like a spear. Looking at the steel below, Pu Yao expressionlessly pulled aside the hair that covered his left eye. Chapter 849. Are you willing? A ball of black mist floated in Pu Yao's left eye. There seemed to be tens of thousands of ghosts giving ear-splitting wails within the mist. Yet both Pu Yao and Wei were unaffected by the wailing. The black mist flew and entered the steel. The steel trembled violently. Threads of black mist emerged from under the steel and wrapped around Pu Yao and Wei. The steel slowly rose and revealed an ancient altar. At this time, Wei, who was dressed in armor, raised the thick sword in his hand and swung down. Boom! Wei split the steel in two. A ball of black mist slowly rose out of the bisected steel. The roiling mist seemed to show indistinct faces. In this moment, a strange field of power spread. An ancient voice came out of the mist, as though it had existed forever, with indescribable age and power. "To abide by my ceremony, to execute my desires, to swear my oath, will thou? Will thou? Will thou?" The last two words were like thunder. Yet Pu Yao and Wei seemed to ignore the voice with practice. Wei lamented, "I don't know when this boy will be able to get us out. I hadn't thought that a guy as emotionless as you will sacrifice yourself to save others." "Never thought of it, never thought of it." Pu Yao said coldly, "I have owed rent for too long, and still have to repay it." "That's true," Wei nodded and said. "This boy isn't in a good state this time. In any case, it is just death. I feel that it is better to die in there. Not so painful, I always feared pain." "Don't waste words, work," Pu Yao said coldly. "All right." Wei did not waste words and stood next to Pu Yao. The two stood gravely next to the ball of mist, the sound of "will thou" echoing in their eyes. The two exchanged a look and said at the same time, "Willing." The sound of "will thou" suddenly stopped. Two black lights suddenly flew out of the black mist and entered the body of the pair. Wei's damaged armor was suddenly restored. A set of armor appeared on Pu Yao's body. The armor on Pu Yao's body was slender and exquisite. Threads of flame appeared from the armor. There were many red triangle glyphs on the duo's armor. If it was someone knowledgeable about ancient ceremonies, they would recognize that these triangle glyphs appeared on sacrificial items. Pu Yao and Wei had made themselves into sacrifices. Great power filled their bodies. Of all the sacrificial ceremonies, the power obtained from the one that used the person as the sacrifice was the strongest. The two both wore gravestone armor. Because the two were just souls, and did not have a body, once they sacrificed themselves, they would be imprisoned in the gravestone and forever stay there. Unless someone of the greatest power could break through the gravestone to save them. "Come!" Wei shouted. He raised the large sword in his hand. "Come!" Pu Yao's cold voice was like a blade. A black line of fire extended from his hand. The black line of fire hit Wei's raised sword. The fire immediately adhered itself to the sword and in a flash, shrouded the sword. Endless flame came from Pu Yao's hand. When the last wisp of flame left Pu Yao's hand, Pu Yao stumbled before he steadied himself. The armor he wore was dim and covered in cracks. Pu Yao was fixed on Wei's sword. Wei's armor gave off great light, the light flowing towards the sword in his hand. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of cracking started from Wei's armor at his feet and spread upwards. Calf, knee, thigh, waist, until it reached his wrists that held the sword. The armor he wore was white and without any light. Wei gave a great bellow, swinging that great sword flowing with light and fire to shove it into the ground. Boom! Zhuo Mo's sea of consciousness immediately split apart. The sun shin glyph that had struggled to absorb the burning sun flow seemed to break free of its last restraints. It started to grow into Zhuo Mo's head. The threads of sun shin glyph were like roots in soil. They reached into Zhuo Mo's head, and the swollen power caused them to rapidly change. A golden seedling rapidly grew at a visible rate at the spot where Zhuo Mo's consciousness had been before. The infant seedling that was growing was a vent for the burning sun flow, the slows rushing into the root system. It caused the burning sun flows that rampaged through Zhuo Mo's body to be sucked up by the Shun glyph that covered his body and was transported into Zhuo Mo's mind. A golden seedling quickly grew. Under the seedling, a lone gravestone stood silently. Zhuo Mo felt the pressure around him quickly decrease. His mind immediately became clear. An unknown amount of time later, he opened his eyes. His body that had been about to erupt had finally calmed down. When Zhuo Mo inspected his body, he was astounded. Almost half of the burning sun flows in his body had gone away. When Zhuo Mo saw the golden tree sprout, he was dumbstruck. Sun tree, wasn't this the sun tree? What happened? Where was his sea of consciousness? Pu Yao and Wei? Zhuo Mo quickly found the gravestone under the sun tree. Two figures appeared on the flat and glossy gravestone, one covered in flames, one dressed in armor. Zhuo Mo was struck by lightning. Pu Yao and Wei. He was so familiar with those two people that even if they burnt into ash, he would recognize them. The two figures on the gravestone were not clear, but Zhuo Mo recognized it was Pu Yao and Wei at a glance. In a blink, he understood what had happened. Tears uncontrollably streamed down. Yet when the tears left his eyes, they turned into steam. They only left behind marks on his face. Zhuo Mo suddenly saw a small ball of fire under the sun tree. A hint of joy flashed through his eyes. He was familiar with this fire. Pu Yao's black fire. Pu Yao had left this. Was this? He suppressed the joy he felt and beckoned to the black fire. When the fire entered his body shook. After you become stronger, come save us. A few short words, but Zhuo Mo was in ecstasy. Pu Yao was not dead, Wei was not dead. In this moment, hope filled his heart. He balled his fists. He swore, I will save you. Zhuo Mo suddenly turned his head. Over there. He sprinted in the direction of the battle. The abundant burning sun flows in his body allowed the sun tree to furiously grow from a seedling into maturity until its branches grew heavy with little tiny suns. It finally stopped absorbing the burning sun flows because it reached its limit. There was about half of the burning sun flows still in Zhuo Mo's body. With the sun tree stopping its absorption, Zhuo Mo's body increased in temperature again. The great pain once again came from his body. Zhuo Mo did not lose clarity. He could withstand pain of this level. Even half of the burning sun flows was not something that Zhuo Mo could endure. Zhuo Mo felt as though his body would explode. But Zhuo Mo still detected a difference. While the pain was still maddening and the feeling of being full was the same as before, Zhuo Mo found that there was a portion of power under his control. This power came from the Shun glyph. Maybe, or more accurately, it came from the little suns on the sun tree. The sun tree was now in the position that had belonged to Zhuo Mo's sea of consciousness. The rampaging burning sun flows had passed through the root-like Shun glyph to the sun Shun tree to those little suns. These little suns could release pure sun Shun power, and this power was like Zhuo Mo had cultivated it himself and could be used to his will. This portion of Shun power was not something that the burning sun flows repelled. They were from the same source and could coexist. The great pain caused Zhuo Mo to focus even more. He knew what dangerous state he was in right now. Those that were mentally any weaker would probably still be struggling in the pain. But Zuoremo did not give up. He searched hard among the pain for any chance. He knew that any chance he had was something that everyone was using their lives to trade for. Eldest Shixiang, a gay, Pu Yao Wei. He couldn't waste this, he did not qualify to give up. He could die, but he could not let everyone's sacrifices become worthless. He turned and sprinted towards where the battle was. Sprinting at top speed, Zuomo's fighting spirit was like the burning flames. His face was calm and determined, his eyes pressingly bright, his hands balled in fists. He moved forward. Zuomo's full speed was astounding, and it was faster than flying. A long tail of flames pulled behind his body. The seal scripts in the surroundings flew towards him. He did not stop. His fists covered in flames smashed everything that stopped him into pieces. A Shun glyph appeared in front of him. Sharp red light shot towards him. Zuoremo did not stop. He crossed his arms in front of him and continued to charge forward. Pop, pop, pop. The red light rained on his body, and Zuomo's flames suddenly shot forward. The red light disappeared after being swept by the sun Shun fire. Almost in a flash, Zuoremo appeared beside the Shun glyph and punched it. A circle of red light suddenly lit up on Zuomo's hand. Burning Sun Flow. This Shun glyph was not high grade to begin with. A tiny bit of Burning Sun Flow was enough to destroy it. Whoosh, the Shun glyph turned into dust. Zuoremo did not stop and continued to charge. Yet Zuomo's gaze landed on the red circle around his fist. This was the Burning Sun Flow. In that punch, he had only channeled Shun power into his fist like usual. He hadn't expected a thread of the Burning Sun Flow was mixed in the Shun power. Shen power could manipulate small amounts of the Burning Sun Flow. The power of this punch was multiplied. Zuomo's eyes lit up. The Burning Sun Flow was peerless in its dominance and unstoppable. Wasn't this the best weapon? The more Zuoremo thought, the more excited he became. Every drop of the Burning Sun Flow contained countless Sun Shun fire. If Chief Elder touched even a bit, he would also be injured. At this time, another Shun glyph appeared in front of him. Zuoremo punched just like before. A dragon of fire howled and charged towards the Shun glyph. The Shun glyph suddenly sprouted out countless lights that hit the fire dragon. Yet the golden dragon of fire did not collapse. It seemed to be unaffected and smashed on the Shun glyph. A red light in the dragon of fire imperceptibly lit up. Boom! The Shun glyph shattered immediately. Zuoremo howled, the flames growing as he charged forward. He was like an unreasonable dragon of flame that smashed everything placed in front of him. Chapter 850, Nothing to do with rationality. The bright light that suddenly lit up the sky from the direction that wild howl came from. Chief Elder's pupils contracted. Zuoremo. He could clearly feel that Zuomo's presence was continuing to rise. Almost at the same time, a dot of fire spread across his vision. Not good. Chief Elder was shocked. Before he could react, the dot of fire charged at him. Sniff. Behind Zuomo's golden figure, all of the Shun glyphs and seal scripts shattered together and formed a straight path. Chief Elder's heart continued to sink. To him, those Shun glyphs were not strong, but he was surprised that Zuoremo was able to crush his way through them so easily. The golden flames were the same as before, but the youth that was within the golden flames had completely transformed. Chief Elder felt intimidated, but his expression was normal. The Shun glyph that revolved around him flew lightly towards Zuoremo. He didn't have much confidence this Shun glyph could stop Zuoremo. He found at this time that his situation had quickly devolved. He had thought that he would easily take care of Tsing Lianer, Zhongru, and Wali, but they were unexpectedly hardy. The three of them had entangled onto 3 Shun glyphs, and this meant that he had nothing to defend himself with. Only now did Chief Elder find that these 3 individuals that he had dismissed were the most important. He couldn't help but feel a thread of regret. If he had used more power to kill these 3 earlier, he would have 3 Shun glyphs at his disposal right now. With 4 Shun glyphs, he didn't believe that Zuoremo would be able to break through his defenses so easily. Finish the battle quickly. Only then would he have the possibility of victory. Murderousness flashed through Chief Elder's eyes. Yet Chief Elder, who detected danger, did not think that the situation was beyond his control. Seeing the droplet of blood completely consumed by the whirlpool, Wei Xing did not panic at all. His eyes became even brighter. He suddenly released the god-killing blood sword in his hand. Under the strong, attractive force of the whirlpool, the god-killing blood sword flew towards the whirlpool. The god-killing blood sword flew to the center of the whirlpool. Just as the sword was about to be consumed by the whirlpool, thick fresh blood sprouted from the sword and quickly spread through the whirlpool. In a blink, the whirlpool became a bloody whirlpool. The sticky blood caused the speed of the whirlpool to slow down. The slower it was, the weaker its attractive force. Soon, the whirlpool became a ball of blood. Wei Xing suddenly disappeared from his spot to appear in front of the god-killing blood sword. His hand touched the god-killing blood sword again. His eyes flashing, he shouted, "Break!" The whirlpool dyed with blood immediately fragmented. The Shen glyph shattered. Wei Xing swayed. His face was bloodless. The Shen glyph was covered in chains. The chains from Agui seemed to be endless. At this time, the grinding blue light was at an astounding strength. The gray mist would be used up almost when it appeared. Crack, crack, crack. Agui's bone armor started to crack. Agui was expressionless. Without realizing it, the purple flames on the tense chains had disappeared. A gray presence spread suddenly from Agui's body and quickly spread along the chains to the Shen glyph. It was strange to see. This gray presence was not affected by the grinding blue light at all. Soon, the gray presence spread on the Shen glyph. When the gray presence took over the last part of the Shen glyph, it disappeared silently in the air. Agui's eyes were also a terrifyingly uniform gray. In a flash, 2 Shen glyphs were defeated. Chief Elder was astounded. The other 3 were astoundingly hardy against the other 3 Shen glyphs. They looked as though they were about to fall, but they never did. The 3 seemed to increase in morale at hearing Zhuo howl and started to fight back. For some reason, Chief Elder felt even more fear. These people were too hardy, so hardy it was terrifying. He, who had victory within his grasp and held the upper hand the entire time, was in danger. Without reaching God level, burning Shen power meant burning their potential life. Chief Elder could understand normal people's explosion. Each person had potential that would erupt when they encountered danger. But these people's danger had been completely burned away. Why? Why were they still persisting to now? Zhuo, who charged in, did not pause as he leapt at Chief Elder. A Shen glyph appeared in front of him. Yet Zhuo seemed to be possessed. They had paid so much for this chance, sacrificed so much in order to charge here. To charge to Chief Elder. How could he be stopped by a Shen glyph? How could he? Zhuo's eyes were like those of a bloodthirsty wild beast. Without any hesitation, he gathered all of his Shen power. Zhuo felt as though he was about to burn up. Then he would burn. His enemy was in front of him. If he could defeat the Shen glyph, he could defeat Chief Elder. Smash it. Kill him. Zhuo's Shen power erupted out. The deep red burning sun flows erupted with Zhuo's sun Shen power. The golden and red lights gathered at Zhuo's fist. His eyes red, Zhuo shouted, "Kill!" The punch. A blinding light was released. Boom. The Shen glyph was not able to make any attack before it was swallowed by the burning light and destroyed. Chief Elder's expression was shocked. There was a terrifying presence in the light thrown by Zhuo's punch. Zhuo's eruption had come so suddenly and with no warning. In the next moment, Zhuo appeared in front of him, covered in flames. He was even able to see Zhuo's teeth in the flames. How was this possible? Chief Elder's mind was blank. His face was full of disbelief. Zhuo had entered God level. How was it possible? God level. How could Zhuo have entered God level? His Shen power and cultivation was not enough for him to enter God level? But yet Zhuo did not give him any time to think. His fist covered in burning sun flow hit Chief Elder's chest. Crack. Chief Elder's chest collapsed inward. The burning sun flow flowed like water into his body and destroyed his vitality. The enormous power caused Chief Elder's figure to be thrown into the ground and left behind a seemingly bottomless hole in the ground. Chief Elder's presence dissipated, but Zhuoremo did not feel any joy. In this battle, they had sacrificed too much. Without the Chief Elder's control, the Glyph Sea immediately disappeared. Already at the end of their tether, everyone gave into their fatigue and fell from the sky. Zhuoremo flashed from his spot to appear next to them and catch them. Of everyone, only Wei Xing was still conscious. His eyes were filled with joy. He had originally planned to defeat Chief Elder as soon as possible, and before his power dissipated, pass his power to Shidi. Maybe Shidi would have a chance to survive. Everyone had ran through the Glyph Sea without any regard for their lives. When he saw Zhuoremo had entered God level and would be able to escape from here, Wei Xing had a comforted smile. Zhuoremo felt as though there were knives stabbing his heart. Eldest Xixiang, who was like steel in his eyes, who was never defeated, didn't have any blood in his face. It was terrifyingly pale. Good job. Eldest Xixiang patted Zhuome's shoulder as if they were those same youths back at Wukong Mountain. Then he urged, "Go now." Agui's gray presence grew even thicker. She was unconscious. Sung Lianer's breathing was faint. She did not have her usual indolence and looked like a simple young girl. Zhongru was covered in wounds. His face was like gold paper. While he was unconscious, his expression was calm. Wali's figure was slowly fading. In that last punch, a large amount of burning sun flow had been channeled out. At this time, Zhuome's body was quickly stabilizing. Chief Elder had been right. Zhuoremo hadn't had enough foundation. Theoretically, he couldn't enter God level. However, Zhuoremo smashing the sun crystal seed had won him a minuscule chance. The burning sun flows contained in the sun crystal seed was far greater than what Chief Elder had accumulated in power. But it was too strong. So strong that before Zhuoremo could use it to step into God level, he would be burned to death. However, Pu Yao and Wei cut apart Zhuome's sea of consciousness at the crucial moment so that the sun Shen glyph would have new room to grow. It had absorbed half of the burning sun flows, strengthening his Shen power and allowing Zhuoremo to escape from death. He had gained from his misfortune and entered God level. The sacrifice of eldest Xixiang and the others had bought Zhuoremo time. Pu Yao and Wei's sacrifice had saved his life. Wei Xing and Agui destroying the Shen glyphs, Sung Lianer, Zhongru, and Wali, who had entangled the other glyphs with the last vestiges of their strength, gave Zhuoremo the conditions to deliver a fatal blow. His chance to survive was one that everyone used their lives to grant. Quick, go! Wei Xing raised his head to look at the sky and urged. This Jie was about to collapse. Zhuome's hand touched Wei Xing's shoulder. He suddenly grinned at Wei Xing. Eldest Xixiang, I'm not listening to you this time. Wei Xing stilled. A burst of Shen power entered Wei Xing's body from Zhuome's hand. Wei Xing's vision filled with gold and fell unconscious. Zhuoremo carefully put Wei Xing's body on the ground. Complex golden Shen glyphs floated on Wei Xing's body. Eldset Xixiang, everyone used their lives to save my life. How can I abandon you in return? Zhuoremo stood as he talked to himself. He walked over to Agui and put his hand on Agui. Agui, young master is really useless. Young master said he would protect you, but the result is this. Young master will definitely save and awaken you, no matter the method. The golden Shen glyph floated on Agui's body. Agui's presence was completely sealed up. Zhuoremo's fire had dimmed greatly. He did not stop and did the same to Sung Lianer, Zhongru, and Wali. After entering God level, his understanding of Shen glyphs was much greater. The Jinji he put only had one use, to stop time. The five would always be held in this state. It was not easy for Zhuoremo to cast this Jinji. All of the suns on the Sun Shen tree had disappeared. The tree trunk had begun to crack. The hair at his temples started to turn white. His lifespan was quickly decreasing. Zhuoremo did not hesitate. When he finished with all five, the white had spread from the temple to the tips of his hair. Everyone had used their lives to earn him the chance to live. Now that his life was secure and entered God level, he would trade his life for theirs. Maybe they would still all die together. A smile blossomed on Zhuome's face. It had nothing to do with rationality. This youth's snowy white hair fluttered in the wind. Chapter 851. The changes in the world. Silly bird looked dazedly at the white-haired Zhuo. Suddenly, she wailed, the bird song filled with sorrow. Her intelligence had formed a long time ago. She grew stronger by the day. She was even stronger than those ringmasters. She still remembered that youth in that old desolate courtyard who counted each jingsher, still remembered carrying the unconscious youth from the gates of Linging sect and struggling back to the sect, still remembered her peeking through the cracks of her feathers as that naked youth used the little art of cloud and rain to cover his important parts, still remembered the person who had traveled over mountains and rivers to search for her, but after finding her point and swore at her. She had become stronger and thought that she would be able to guard him like she did back at Wukong Mountain. Tears spilled from her eyes. She spread her wings, thick fire rising, bright and burning fire erupting into the air. Zhuo was joyfully surprised at silly bird transformation at this moment. At this time, his power had reached an extremely low level. With his present strength, it was not possible to return to Cloud Sea. The most likely outcome was being lost in the endless void. The endless void was not a safe place. Also, Zhuo had to protect other people, so it would be even harder. Silly bird transforming right now meant that he had help. Zhuo swept a gaze across everyone else. He found that only Qing Xiao and the little ones were the only ones left alive. Seeing Zhuo fine, they hurried over. Qing Xiao still had hints of fear on his face. The ground shook violently, volcanoes erupting. The sky seemed to be made out of glass with terrifying cracks spreading across it. Flowing fire fell from the sky, earth fire erupted as geysers into the air. This Jie was about to collapse. Zhuo did not hesitate any longer. The flames around him rose and wrapped around Qing Xiao and the little ones. He shouted, "Silly bird!" Covered in flames, Silly bird heard Zhuo's shout and suddenly lowered her head. "Go!" Zhuo carried everyone to fly into the sky. Silly bird gave a high bark and waved her flame-covered wings to chase after Zhuo. Zhuo finally saw Silly bird's complete appearance. Her long tails were like ribbons. The feathers seemed to be made from flame. When she flew, sparks fell down. A word flashed through Zhuo's mind. Phoenix. A roar of laughter spread through the sky. A figure climbed out of a pit. It was Chief Elder. He raised his head to look at the sky. The sky had shattered into countless fragments and fire rained down. His face was terrible, and a large part of his chest had been caved in. He laughed bitterly. His life was gone. Zhuo's attack had completely destroyed all of his vitality. The reason he still managed to climb up was just because he was holding on by a single breath. He could die, but Tianhuan could not. Gathering the last bit of power, he quickly flew in another direction. The sky fire landed on his body, but he did not seem to feel it. Moments later, he had a joyful expression. Found it. There was no one in the yard. Chief Elder quickly flew into the secret room. In the room, Xianxia had a joyful expression when she saw Chief Elder. Chief Elder. But when her gaze landed on Chief Elder's abnormal chest, the joy turned to shock. Who could have injured Chief Elder like this? Looking at Xianxia, Chief Elder was full of emotion. When he had just entered God level, he had been full of motivation. He hadn't expected to end up in such a state. However, he was not the average person. He quickly gathered his thoughts. Time was short. If he lived, Xianxia would just be an accomplished disciple. But if he died, Xianxia was crucial to Tianhuan's survival. There is no time, Chief Elder said gravely. I cannot return. After you return, meet the sect leader in secret first to stabilize the situation. Especially with me, Nan, you must be cautious. Xianxia's face was pale in fright. If Chief Elder died, Tianhuan. She didn't dare to think. Chief Elder rejoiced that he had left a secret escape route when he closed off this jia. This was just his habit. He hadn't expected this habit to have such an effective use. Go. Chief Elder couldn't do anything else. Using the last bit of power, he started the transport. Xianxia disappeared with a shocked expression. The Battle of the Central Plains stunned the world. It had been more than 10,000 years since the destruction of Jie. Only a god-level expert could create such a terrifying result. This battle drastically changed the situation of the world. The destruction of the Central Plains meant that Zhong Da and his Abyss Jail Battalion had been completely wiped out. The rumors said that the king of Mo Cloud Sea, Zhua Mo, also died, but Mo Cloud Sea's movements were not hesitant at all. Before everyone could react, the battalion led by Gong Suncha was like a sharp dagger that quickly entered the belly Xixien. They did not encounter any resistance on their way. Xixien, who had lost Zhong Da, lost their last bit of courage. When Mo Cloud Sea's battalion was deep within Xixien, people finally realized. This was the start of another banquet. Many people still hungered after the banquet that was Xian Kong Temple last time. Anyone that had attended that banquet had gained greatly. The collapse of a titan like Xixien was similarly tempting. Yet the development of the situation was unexpected to all. Mo Cloud Sea's battalions quickly took over and defended many of the important jies. They did not attempt to take all of Xixien. But those with clear eyes could see that if Mo Cloud Sea finished setting up, they would have control of almost 2/3 of Xixien's territories. Gu Liang Dao's battalion also entered Xixien with Mo Cloud Sea. The other party that moved quickly was Kunlun. Shui Dong led his battalion to quickly enter Xixien. Mu Xian, who had been at a stalemate with Mu Shi, turned quickly and entered Xixien. People finally realized that Kunlun's true target wasn't Mu Shi, their target was Xixien. Unlike Kunlun, who everyone thought had the better chances of conquering territory, no one thought that Mo Cloud Sea would gain much because of Tianhuan's many defensive fortresses. Tianhuan would not allow Mo Cloud Sea to finishing setting up. Yet, unexpectedly, Tianhuan did not move at all. They watched as Mo Cloud Sea consolidated their control. What was going on with Tianhuan? People immediately realized that something had happened within Tianhuan. At this time, Tianhuan was having a great inner conflict. Li Xian Air became the target of Mi Nan and the others. Of all of Tianhuan's forces, only she had escaped. These elders wanted to take away her right to succession. The factions led by Gongya Xiaorong supported Li Xian Air instead. The two sides had a great conflict. Mi Nan, one of the 10 great battle generals, led many of the families of Tianhuan to divide their rule and called themselves the orthodox faction of Tianhuan. Tianhuan split apart. When the news leaked, the world was astounded. Only now did the news that Tianhuan's chief elder was dead spread. Only now were many details of the Battle of the Central Plains exposed. Zhua Mo, Wei Sheng, Zhong Ru, Agui, Tseng Lianer, and Luo Li. The blow that Mo Cloud Sea received was unparalleled. Xixien, Tianhuan, Mo Cloud Sea, this was a battle that all three sides lost. Everyone thought that Mo Cloud Sea, who had lost Zhua Mo and these many experts, would quickly crumble like Tianhuan. Unexpectedly, Mo Cloud Sea did not crumble but became even stronger. The battalions led by Gong Sun Cha quickly finished their fortification in Xixien. At this time, Gun Liang Dao's battalion encountered Shui Dong battalion. Gu Liang Dao battalion was heavily damaged. Just as it looked as though they were about to be defeated, Gong Sun Cha came with reinforcements just in time and set up their army at the flank of Shui Dong battalion. Shui Dong had to withdraw his battalion or risk being pincered, and Gu Liang Dao's battalion was finally saved. The two great battle generals worked together to restrain Shui Dong battalion. Mu Xian battalion, who entered Xixien, encountered obstruction from Yang Yuan Hao battalion. Mu Xian hadn't expected Yang Yuan Hao to attack Kunlun and suffered a minor loss. The two sides quickly entered deadlock. Mu Xian's battle style could not be called fierce, and Yang Yuan Hao's style was more about being stable. The two ended up in a long drawn-out battle of attrition. Kunlun saw their attack was not going well and immediately put pressure towards the 9 Great Diana sect who supported Yang Yuan Hao. Unexpectedly, Yang Yuan Hao managed to hold against the pressure from the sects and did not move a step back against Mu Xian. Mu Xian saw that if this continued, Kunlun would lose their last chance, so she started a strong attack. Yang Yuanhao paid a considerable price to stop Mu Xian's fierce attack and successfully caught Mu Xian's weakness after their fierce attack to heavily injure Mu Xian battalion. Yang Yuanhao's face grew greatly after this battle. But Yang Yuanhao holding against the pressure to win against Mu Xian battalion caused the 9 great dhyana sects that were internally warring to fracture. Thunder Sound Temple, Lotus Sutra Temple, Splendid Buddha Temple, Surangama Heart Sect formed the lesser 4 dhyana sections. The others all sided with Kunlun. At this time, no one had a positive outlook on Tianhuan. Shixian was covered in battlefields. The cruel and fierce battles caused many of the other factions to stop and just watch. The fighting between Kunlun and Tianhuan was also fierce. Mu Shuang and Gongya Xiaorong were angered by Minan's betrayal and started an attack on Minan. In the inner conflicts of Tianhuan, Mu Shuang had always kept silent. However, Minan's action of starting a civil war in Tianhuan infuriated this great battle general. The fighting between the two sides was intense. All of the Xiuzhou world became an even greater battlefield. No place was spared. In the Yao world, using Mu Zai's successful campaign, Ming Yi managed to stabilize her power. An unprecedented cleansing of the Yao faction started. This Yao cleansing was so great it surpassed everyone's expectations. Even the one who started it, Ming Yi, never thought of it. The Mo territories were also in chaos. Inside the 100 Savage Realm, the Emotion Temple started to move. They displayed their great power. The Mo martial alliance that Bihan had beaten down became their first target. Time passed and advanced, unstoppable, in battle and chaos. Chapter 852, Coffin Puller. Just like usual, a man sat silently as he waited for the appearance of prey. His body was in the bog with only his head above the mud. His head was hidden by thick branches. In this cold nether bog, there were some strange Mo beasts such as the nether-tailed fox that could be sold for a good price. While these Mo beasts were not aggressive, they were cunning and it was difficult to catch them. However, a man was a skilled hand at this. He was very familiar with the weather in the cold nether bog. He could enter it and occasionally harvest some rare nether grasses and flowers. He did not need to worry that people would steal from him. It was rare to find other people in the cold nether bog. It was surrounded by a dangerous nether mist. If he didn't have his own methods, he would be unable to enter. Even the mud of the bog he was hiding in contained extremely strong nether energy. This was formed from the corpses of Mo beasts buried in the bog. Suddenly, a strange sound came from the distance. Woo-splash, woo-splash. A man frowned. He had never heard a sound like this before. His heart suddenly jumped. Had a Mo beast from deep in the cold nether bog come out? When this thought rose, his blood seemed to freeze. He was able to enter the cold nether bog, but he never dared to actually go deep into this bog. There were many nether beasts beyond his capabilities there. His ancestors passed down tales that said the cold nether bog's depths led to the 9 levels of the underworld. A man thought if there really was an underworld, but if there was, then it wasn't strange if it really was in the depths of the cold nether bog. With every mile one went into the cold nether bog, the danger would increase dramatically. The depths of the cold nether bog was the paradise of those dangerous and large Mo beasts. Once, he had seen an unknown Mo beast rampage its way over. Even when he thought of that vicious and powerful presence now, he felt as though it was a nightmare. He was lucky that time and he was completely immersed in the bog, otherwise he probably would have died. So when a man heard an unfamiliar sound, he felt his heart rise up to his throat. The sound grew closer and he grew more nervous. The sound came from the nearby bushes. He stared the bushes and unconsciously held his breath. Trying to run away now was the stupidest action. Being able to hear the sound meant that the Mo beast was very close. Hiding in the bog right now was the correct choice. Suddenly, when it appeared in his view, he stilled. Person. It was a person. A man with snowy white hair appeared out of the thick bushes. He had a few thick ropes thrown over his shoulder. Each thick rope was taut with their ends extending into the bushes. The male walked over the mud as though he was stepping on flat ground as he pulled the ropes, dragging his burden forward. The whooshing sound came from the bushes. Suddenly, 5 wood coffins were pulled out of the bushes. A man's face changed in fear. He had never thought that the white-haired man was pulling 5 coffins. In this unpopulated place, to see a man with white hair pulling 5 coffins, even someone as daring as a man's blood froze. Especially when he saw the others suddenly turn towards him. His mind immediately blanked. He had been found. Finally encountered a person. Zuemo was filled with joy. After struggling and wandering in the endless void for so long, he finally escaped and found another person. His joy could be imagined. Behind him, Xianxia reacted even faster. With a shocked exclamation, his hand shook, and the green pulse string on his wrist shot towards a man's hiding place. Xianxia had grown much bigger. He looked about 20. After moving through the endless void with Zuemo these years, his strength had grown. With the guidance of a god level like Zuemo by his side, and the experiences of the endless void, he was extremely powerful. 10 years. 10 whole years. They had roamed the endless void for 10 whole years. The endless void, the lifeless world without any people, the endless dangers. They had journeyed aimlessly to arrive back to civilization. Even with Zuemo's iron resolve, he couldn't help but feel excited, much less Xianxia. Hiding in the mud, a man felt something tighten around his body. Then a great force pulled him. He spun and flew in front of the white-haired man. The hair-thin green pulse string wrapped around a man and held him up in the air. Zuemo gave a friendly smile to a man who was frightened speechless. Then he said, "Xiao, you are scaring him. Let him down." "Oh." Xianxia responded. The green pulse string seemed to hear and obediently put a man down, unwrapping from around a man and retreating back to Xianxia's hand. A man refocused and knelt with a bang, shouting, "Elder, have mercy! Elder, have mercy!" Zuemo didn't know what to do. With a wave of his hand, an invisible hand propped a man up. He said gently, "Don't worry, I don't want your life, I only want to ask you a few questions." A man's heart settled slightly. Looking at the other's friendly face, they really didn't seem to want to kill him. He hurriedly said, "Elder, ask whatever you need, this lowly one will not dare to conceal anything." A man was not an inexperienced person. In fact, he was very experienced. While he did not know the origins of this elder, the other was clearly powerful. How could a person that walked out of the depths of the cold nether bog be weak? According to his experience, the stronger the elder, the stranger their tempers were. He had to be careful. Looking at a man's caution and wariness, Zuemo did not care. He asked warmly, "Where is this?" A man stilled but quickly reacted to respond, "Darren, this is the cold nether bog." Cold nether bog? Zuemo had a blank expression. He had not heard of this name before. He had to ask, "Which Jia?" "Deep fiend nether Jia," a man responded. Zuemo noticed the word nether had come up twice and asked, "Belonging to the nether realm?" A man hurriedly nodded. "Yes, in the nether realm." Zuemo sighed in relief. He hadn't thought that he would arrive at the nether realm. He was filled with joy. While the nether realm was mysterious, it was part of the Mo territories, and there would be some way of returning to Mo Cloud Sea. Thinking of everyone in Mo Cloud Sea, Zuemo couldn't help but become excited. In these years, Zuemo's own state had not been good. When he sealed the 5 people, other than the loss of his longevity, Zuemo's unstable cultivation that had just reached god level had almost collapsed. In the years Zuemo spent roaming the endless void, he had been recovering all this time. But his wounds were to the root, and the endless void was not a good place to heal. He did all he could and had finally stabilized his cultivation. However, his power had not recovered. If it was not for Silly Bird's transformation, the little ones all leveling up, and Xiao's increase in power, he would have died long ago in the endless void. His sea of consciousness had shattered, which meant that he could not enter the 10-finger prison and could not communicate with Mo Cloud Sea. The nether realm was far from Mo Cloud Sea, but it was within the 3 realms. He could think of ways to get back to Mo Cloud Sea. It has been a long time since this one entering the world. This one doesn't know of the changes outside. Will this little brother help us get to the nearest town? Zwarimo was very polite. A man finally sighed in relief hearing the request. The other having use for him meant they would not kill him. He hurriedly said, of course, the closest city to her is Little Serene Town. If we walk, it will take about a day and a half. Many thanks, little brother. A red bead appeared on Zwarimo's hand which he threw to a man. Little brother, do not refuse this small token. A man took the red bead and his heart jumped. Joy filled him. The eye of the red-eyed nether wolf. Faint warmth came from the ruby-like bead. There was the thick presence of fire, a pure and serene nether presence. It might be of high quality. Just this nether wolf fire bead was more than what he would make in a month. Many thanks, elder. Many thanks, elder. He was overjoyed. This time, he had great luck to encounter a well-tempered and generous elder. Zwarimo smiled as he had been doing. Little brother, no need for such courtesy. This nether wolf fire bead was nothing to him. It was something they had killed along the way in the cold nether bog. The little ones wouldn't even deign to look on something of this level. The endless void was full of danger, but anything that survived there were all hundreds of thousands of years old. The little ones had gained picky tastes. Even Lil Pagoda, who had never lacked interest in the lowliest materials, scoffed at something like the nether wolf fire bead, much less anyone else. A man's mood was completely different now. Even his voice carried familiarity as he introduced to Zwarimo the nearby situation. Zwarimo had once ruled over a region and knew how management worked. He asked some seemingly disconnected questions and learned all about the area around Little Serene Town. Zwarimo quickly formed his own conclusions. Little Serene Town was a very remote town without a battalion. The population was small and transportation to and from it was difficult. This place was cut off from the outer world. He could hear from a man's voice that the great majority of the residents had never left this little town. But a man had a clever mouth and mentioned he had left before. Little Serene Town made a living by hunting in and around the cold nether bog. The nether energy of the cold nether bog was pure and all kinds of nether materials that grew here were of fair quality. The residents of Little Nether Town mostly lived by hunting and gathering materials. Zwarimo did not know much about the Nether Realm and listened interestedly. The Nether Realm had always been relatively closed off. As one of the two realms of the MO, it rarely communicated with the outside world. Even its interactions with Hundred Savage Realm was rare, much less the Xiozha world. The so-called Nether energy was a kind of energy very similar to death energy. It was filled with cold and the scent of death. It could be seen that this kind of energy similar to death was all over the Nether Realm. A man cultivated Shen power, and even this was filled with the presence of this Nether energy. However, a man said what he cultivated was not true Nether Shen power. True Nether Shen power came from the Nether energy. He could hear a man's yearning when he said this. A man was not fast as Zwarimo, but Zwarimo did not press him. Pulling the 5 coffins, he followed behind a man. A man spoke of all kinds of things in the Nether Realm, and it was not boring. A day and a half later, Little Serene Town was in sight. Chapter 853, Golden Chariot. The residents of Little Serene Town looked with wariness at Zwarimo. Zwarimo did not care. There were not many people who came to the little town, so there was only one hotel. Zwarimo stayed in it. The feeling of returning to society was wonderful even in a small town like this. However, what was most important was communicating with Mo Cloud C. While the Nether Realm was far from Mo Cloud C, Zwarimo still had ways. After entering God level, many things that he felt were mysterious before were no longer mysterious. Zwarimo had also learned a lot from that battle with Chief Elder, especially many of the Shen glyphs that Chief Elder had collected. These were all gained by Zwarimo's. Zwarimo's skill at Shen glyphs could not compare to Chief Elder, but after entering God level it was much easier for him to understand. In the years Zwarimo had wandered in the endless void, Zwarimo thought back to the many Shen glyphs that Chief Elder had in his glyph C. For a God level, he only needed to remember a small part and he could reconstruct the complete Shen glyph in a very short amount of time. Zwarimo slowly folded the paper crane. He was full of excitement. The last time he communicated with everyone was in the moment before they left the Central Plains. He had gathered his remaining Shun power to send out a paper crane of the highest priority. When this paper crane was folded, he gently sent it flying. But the paper crane quickly returned to his hands. Zuemo was slightly shocked. It was the first time he encountered a situation like this. He quickly realized what had happened. The Nether Realm was locked down. This conclusion surprised Zuemo. Even a god level did not have the power to lock down an entire realm. Then it must be something similar to seal formations. How great was the scale of something that could lock down an entire realm be? Other than the ruler of the Nether Realm, Zuemo could not think of anyone that could accomplish this. Suddenly, Zuemo recalled the news that the Nether Realm had been united by a Nether King 10 years ago. At that time, no one had paid too much attention to that. The Nether Realm was far away and mysterious. Zuemo's mind moved. Was this done by that Nether King? Zuemo felt that his speculation was most likely true. However, this meant contacting Mo Cloud C was even more troublesome. Even paper cranes could not fly out, transportation formations were even more unlikely to work. At this time, his body had not recovered, and he could not overcome these restraints. The paper crane could not fly out of the Nether Realm, he could not enter the 10-finger prison, then how was he supposed to communicate with Mo Cloud C? After thinking for a while, he found there was only one way: walk out of the Nether Realm. The enormous Nether Realm could not be completely sealed off. It had to have channels to the outside world. If he tried hard to find it, he definitely would. He had been able to make it through a decade in the endless void. What was this distance? Zuemo's gaze was determined. He started to think about how he could return to Mo Cloud C more effectively and faster. He believed nothing to stop his steps. "Hey, a man, what does the strange person you brought back really do?" a resident of the town asked in a small voice. A man frowned and scolded. "What strange person? Call them elder. Careful not to offend elder, you cannot afford to offend them." The one who spoke shrank his head back. A man's words were persuasive. Someone that dragged 5 coffins and walked out of the cold nether bog was definitely not someone they could offend. A man glanced at the hotel. It had been 5 days since Elder had last come out. Originally, this was nothing, but when the townspeople thought of the 5 coffins, they couldn't help but panic. In the Nether Realm, there were many that forged corpses. Had this Elder gone to the cold Nether Realm to dig up corpses? There were many that forged corpses, but normal people still disliked those that did so. Many years ago, in a city, someone had made a mistake when forging corpses and caused half of the people of that city to become zombies. It had been a long time since such a powerful corpse forging MO had appeared. But when they thought of the white-haired person who had came out of the cold nether bog, everyone couldn't help but be filled with worry. A man didn't feel that Elder forged corpses. Elder didn't even have a hint of nether energy. He even felt that Elder didn't seem like MO. He didn't know why, but he just had the feeling. Suddenly, golden light came out of the hotel. A vast presence rampaged in waves. The hotel shattered like it was made out of paper. A golden chariot appeared in front of everyone. The chariot seemed to be made from gold. It was noble and grand. The roof of the chariot curved like the firmament, golden tassels draping down like golden flames. The wheels of the chariot were held up by golden flames to float in the air. The body of the chariot was carved with exquisite sun diagrams. And at the center of each sun was a precious gem that a man didn't recognize. They released all kinds of light. The entire chariot was about 20 zhang, astoundingly large. All of Little Serene Town was stunned by this chariot. Many people unconsciously knelt. They were completely conquered by this chariot. That vast and deep presence was like an ancient king looking down on the world. "A man, are you willing to be my guide?" A faint voice came from the chariot. Excitement rose on a man's face. He said without hesitation, "A man is willing to follow Darren. Come up." A man felt a cloud pushing him up and he came onto the chariot. A man was extremely clever and bowed after getting on the chariot. "Elder, where are we going?" Where is the most prosperous city in this Jie? Wugu City, a man said respectfully. Then I want to go there. Yes. A man did not waste words. The chariot broke through the air and left behind a stream of golden flames as it roared like thunder. Zuemo had thought it through. While his Shen power had not recovered, his god-level cultivation was steady. He could easily defeat normal experts. He also had the little ones and Qing Xiao as powerful sidekicks. Even if he also met a god level, he did have the ability to fight. In other words, he was at the top of the food chain now. He did not want to provoke a strong enemy, but if other people came to provoke him, they should measure themselves first. Normal experts and battalions were not a threat to people of his level. What he needed to do now was to return to Mo Cloud C at the fastest possible speed. He needed to let Mo Cloud C know he was still alive and had returned as soon as possible. There was no need to hide his identity right now. There was no need, and he should be as loud as possible to attract attention. Only then would the news he was still alive spread more easily. Also, being ostentatious, arrogant, and looking dangerous meant that it would save him great trouble. After thinking this through, Zuemo forged this showy sun chariot. With his present level, his forging had reached the peak. Also, he had collected many good materials. Adding on that he deliberately was pursuing grandness and ostentatious, the sun chariot was majestic when it was forged. The flames covering the wheels were sun Shen fire. There were 8 Shen glyphs on the entire chariot. It could be called Zuemo's masterpiece. When the chariot was used, it roared and wailed. The world seemed to shake. Anyone who heard it was stunned. The spectators were not able to see the true form of the chariot. They could only see a ball of flowing fire come with the vast presence of a wasteland beast that shook people's souls. Such presence, it attracted attention anywhere it passed. No one dared to provoke them. Zuemo's intention was not just to attract attention. This grand sun chariot had many Shen formations that could absorb all kinds of powers and turn them into Shen power. He would then use it to repair his body. Zuemo could feel that his body was slowly recovering. The endless void was the best place to gain experience, but not the best place to cultivate. That icy endless void meant that not only was it hard for his Shen power to be replenished, he had to always be on his guard for his Shen power silently leaking out. In these 10 years, he had thought of all the ways he could to take care of the 5 people. The 5's vitality was sealed off. In order for them to live, he had to think of ways to replenish their vitality. There were 5 nurturing Shen formations inside the 5 coffins. In this decade, Zuemo had not been idle even one day. In order to save these 5 people, he created the Shen formations that had Shen glyphs as the core and the seal scripts as the branches. He pulled the 5 coffins and moved with Qing Xiao and the little ones like locusts. They dug up everything valuable everywhere they passed to search for the required materials. Zuemo did not hesitate to use priceless treasures on Wei Xing, the other 4, and the little ones. Other than those things, he needed to cultivate every day and stabilize his cultivation. The Shen formations had the ability to steal life from the heavens. He threw in all kinds of treasure without regard for the cost. After being nursed for 10 years, the 5 were finally starting to get better. Zuemo was able to hear the soft breathing of the 5. Their destroyed bodies started to recover vitality. He had not stopped thinking about this for 5 years. Zuemo's understanding of power reached a profound level. He knew how he should recover his power. His Shen power had not recovered, but his cultivation was steady. He had ways. The chariot passed through thick clouds, thunder and lightning being attracted to the chariot. The chariot was covered by the lightning, and it was so blinding it was like an angry god descending. The thick lightning was absorbed by the Shen formations on the chariot and turned into Shen power to nurse Zuemo's body. His body that was dry as the desert greedily sucked every drop of Shen power and slowly returned vitality. A man looked at the lightning that was flashing constantly outside. When the first bolt had come, he was half frightened to death. Such a thick bolt of lightning. If he was hit, there probably won't even be ash left. The scene that occurred after caused him to lose the ability to think. Thousands, no tens of thousands, of bolts of lightning came out of the corners of the clouds and furiously hit the chariot. A moment later, he recovered from his daze. He unconsciously rubbed his face. He was still alive. He was actually still alive. Heavens! He suddenly became excited. That scene he had just witnessed was the most spectacular he ever saw in this life. Elder was too powerful. At this time, he wanted to kneel in thanks. He was really fortunate. A man Elder's voice came from the chariot room. A man shook and said respectfully, "A man is here. Let me have a look at the Shun methodology you cultivate." The clever man was overjoyed. The intentions of the elder to teach him was indicated in his tone. He suppressed his excitement. He took out a bone covered in patterns and handed it over with both hands. Chapter 854 Qingshao Wugu City was the most prosperous city of the Jie, and as expected, Enzhua Mo learned much useful information here. After 10 years, the world had changed significantly. After cultivating for 10 years, no matter which faction one spoke of, a large amount of experts had rose. These experts mostly were names that Zhuemo had never heard of. Zhuemo found this from a man. He perceptively recognized the change. If the era of Shun power had just begun 10 years ago, then after 10 years, Shun power was facing its spring. However, what he was most happy was the news of Mo Cloud C. Unlike Tianhuan, who descended into civil war, and Xixian, who had been consumed, Mo Cloud C was prospering. Right now, Mo Cloud C was the second-ranked power in the Xiuzhou world, only under Kunlun. Gong Suncha had been fighting these 10 years and won all encounters, defeating all challengers. His ranking rose, and he was now the second strongest battle general after Shui Dong. Bihan had not rested on his laurels. His ranking had risen to 6th. The two working together had taken almost half of Xixian's territories. The one that had benefited the most from the division within Tianhuan was Mo Cloud C. Mo Cloud C had grabbed the opportunity of the North and South Tianhuan factions' war to sell the Mo Cloud Shen equipment and set themselves as the biggest seller of Shen equipment. Kunlun had become even stronger. While they had been stopped by Gong Suncha and were unable to accomplish their goal, they still took almost 1/3 of Xixian's territory. Adding on the 5 sects of the 9 Great Diana sects that had sided with them, Kunlun's territories were unprecedentedly large. However, after the Battle of the Central Plains, Lin Qian had stayed in seclusion and had not come out. When he saw this bit of news, Zhuemo's pupils unconsciously contracted. Lin Qian had definitely received significant wounds when he fled. With Zhuemo's present level, he could accurately judge the amount of damage Lin Qian had received then. Lin Qian's wounds had definitely healed long ago. There was only one possibility why he was in seclusion. Lin Qian was trying to become god level. 10 years had passed. The average level of Shun power had gone up a few levels since then. With Lin Qian's abilities, it was possible that he might reach god level. Zhuemo had a general guess of Lin Qian's intentions. If Lin Qian successfully became god level, he would ascend to be the only god level of the Xiuzhou realm and would lead the biggest sect in the world, Kunlun. His reputation would reach a level never seen before. At that time, all would want to join him. Even Mo Cloud C would not be able to stop him. This was truly to accomplish all in one stroke. But Lin Qian definitely would not have thought that Zhuemo would come back alive. Zhuemo's eyes flashed with cold light. A smile came onto his lips. After 10 years of hardship, his resolve was hardened. He was far from the little Mo of the past. For Lin Qian, who seemed like his fated archenemy, Zhuemo did not feel any fear. He was filled with confidence. He anticipated the next time they fought. The only one in the Xiuzhou world that could be a match for him was Lin Qian. Zhuemo quickly refocused and continued reading. The Xiuzhou world had changed from the 3-party equilibrium to 2 fighting for dominance. Tianhuan's split and decline and Mo Cloud C's rise formed a clear contrast. Compared to 10 years ago, there were many more small factions. Tianhuan had split into North and South Tianhuan. Both sides thought they were the orthodox one. The long-standing internal conflict had used up their already weak strength. Other than this, the split of the 9 Great Diana sect was not a surprise. However, The lesser four Diana sects had not sided with Mo Cloud C. Zhua Mo knew that it was because he was not there, and Yang Huanhao's confidence in Mo Cloud C had wavered. He did not feel that Yang Yuanhao was wrong. Truthfully, even Zhua Mo was filled with surprise at Mo Cloud C's development. Time had been tight then. The paper crane he sent out only had 5 words: "Wait for us to return." At that time, he hadn't been sure if they could survive, but he still sent the message. His thoughts then had been simple: to leave behind a hope for everyone. He didn't know how much use this hope was. He didn't know if this hope would come true. But he didn't want Mo Cloud C to split like this. He hoped that everyone would stay united. Losing him, losing eldest Shixiang and the other 4 great experts. This blow was enough to be fatal to Mo Cloud C. At this time, a hope was like a life-saving stalk of grass. Zhua Mo knew that for many factions, an intangible hope like this was like an illusion and had no meaning or value. They would still split up and crumble. But Mo Cloud C did not. Everyone hadn't given up. For some reason, Zhua Mo was moved. An intangible hope in exchange for 10 years of standing guard. This was Mo Cloud C. Qing Xiao's gaze swept across the Mo in front of him. Truthfully, he didn't know why Darren needed to recruit people. In his view, these people were all average in strength. However, Qing Xiao did not understand, but since Big Brother had told him to do this, he would complete it to the best of his abilities. Qualification 1: Youth. Qualification 2: Strong. Qing Xiao chanted in his mind as he swept the gaze again. Then he pointed into the crowd. He pointed out 10 people in one go. A man gaped from the side. Elder had asked him to help Qing Xiao Darren to pick 10 servants. Usually, this would be done by going through round after round of competition to pick out the elites. There were more than 1,000 people here. When Elder's chariot entered Wugu City, all of Wugu City had been disrupted. Even the city master had ran to the gates to welcome them. Watching the city master, who was so old he was almost in the ground, bow with the humble mannerisms of a junior, a man felt it was extremely strange. Elder was living in the mansion of the city master. Then countless people came and tried to curry favor with Elder. Someone started, and now a large group ran to the city master's mansion every day to ask Elder for guidance. These people were delusional. Thinking about the Shen methodology Elder had bestowed, a man felt wonderful inside. He felt a clear difference when he cultivated these days. The Shen methodology that Elder had given him was as extraordinary as expected. These people did not scatter, and it started to look ugly. There were many sons and nephews of the local powers here. Elder had barely agreed when he said he wanted 10 servants. And then, it became like this. More than 1,000 people surrounded the gates of the city master's mansion. The scene was so spectacular a man gaped. A man was proud, but he felt slightly uncertain. Any person among these could beat him like a dog. He was only considered strong in Little Serene Town. In Wugu City, he was nothing. Looking at Qing Xiao casually picking 10 people, a man swallowed the words that reached his mouth. Qing Xiao Darren definitely had his own reasons. The ones that were chosen were overjoyed, those who were not were extremely disappointed. Suddenly, someone shouted from within the crowd, "Not fair. This is not fair. Why did you choose them?" A man felt it was a bad shift in the crowd. There were many lawless people among this group. If they were chosen by combat, there wouldn't have been a problem. Qing Xiao picking people by seemingly random choice was something many people could not accept. After a short pause, many people started to shout as well, since there were many that were not chosen. The mob grew rowdy at the gates of the city master's mansion. Qing Xiao had not expected he would encounter something like this. He was not stupid, and he frowned as he thought. If Big Brother encountered something like this, what would he do? Big Brother didn't seem to have encountered this situation before. Qing Xiao thought for a while. He felt that these people were as disobedient as Black Gold. Oh, how did Silly Bird deal with Black Gold? Beat him. The Black Gold Seal soldier feared the strong and bullied the weak. He fawned in front of Big Brother, but he liked to posture in front of everyone else. He was also greedy, and when he had a conflict with the little ones, he had been beaten up by Silly Bird before he became docile. Beat them up. Qing Xiao suddenly realized, so Big Brother wanted to teach me this. Qing Xiao did not hesitate. He flew into the air, and the green pulse string at his wrist spread out. The long green pulse string gave off thick green light and was tensed like a bowstring. Qing Xiao's right arm pulled back slightly, and the green pulse string moved like a bowstring. This light started to gather at the bowstring that Qing Xiao pulled. The sky above Wugu City immediately turned dark. The light where his hand touched the bowstring became even brighter. An extremely dangerous presence covered the 1,000 people below. It seemed everyone's neck was put into a stranglehold. The swearing suddenly stopped. Everyone looked dazedly at Qing Xiao in the air and that outrageously dangerous ball of light in his hand. Blood retreated visibly from their faces. The thick green light reflected Qing Xiao's calm expression. The crowd could not see any puzzlement or panic on his face. He seemed to be doing a simple thing. The thick Shen power covered all of Wugu City. Would he destroy Wugu City? Damn it! The city master of Wugu City could not stand by any longer. If he knew, he would have sent a battalion to maintain the peace. These bastards! How dare they anger Elder? His heart burned in urgency. After being city master for so many years, he was more knowledgeable than normal people. To say of nothing else, just that chariot had blinded him. He was not a country bumpkin. He had associated with many of the so-called prestigious families. But he had never seen such a grand chariot. Also, this was definitely not a normal chariot. Even someone blind could see that this was not a normal chariot. Also, someone blind would be able to see that Elder was of extraordinary origins. He had the impulse to kill the 1,000 people. You idiots, did you not see that even this city master was full of respect? And you still dare cause trouble? If you ruin this city master's matter, I will kill you all myself. The city master gritted his teeth. He was currying favor with this Darren of unknown origins for his own goals. The 1,000 people below were dumbstruck. Did this person want Wugu City to bleed in rivers? Qing Xiao did not think so much. He remembered clearly that Silly Bird had beaten Black Gold like a dog. Therefore, he released the bowstring. They are tuning into the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.